Akron, Ohio, representing Team Popping the Boys, the headline god, Jeremy Lambert, and his co-host, speaking out of Atlanta, Georgia, representing more than one royal family, the king of indie viewing, Stephen Jensen. And this is the Spotlight on Fightful.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spotlight here on Fightful. I'm Jeremy Lambert. That's Stephen Jensen. It's Thursday, November 7th. Plenty to talk about, as always. Jensen, how you doing?
Doing good. Shout out to Big Dick MLJ, as always, for the intro. I'm doing good, man. A lot has happened, obviously, since the last show, but yeah, I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm here.
Yeah.
Anything you want to talk about before wrestling?
We're definitely not going to talk politics. That's definitely not something we're going to do here on this show. We're going to stick to the wrestling, and maybe I don't know. Is there any football stuff? The Vikings got it back on the winning track, so that was good to see. They're 6-2 now. So I'm still keeping an eye. Keeping an eye on your Panthers, seeing what moves they might make. But I don't know if they really can. The trade deadline's over now, so I don't know what. I mean, I've been keeping my eye mainly on Adam Thielen because I've always talked about he's like my favorite player of all time. And I really felt like he was going to get traded, but he's also injured, so that probably limits what they can really do with him. And they're going to have to decide if they're going to take him off IR soon, if he's going to play this season and stuff. So interested because I know Bryce Young's going to start for y'all this week, but they're still waffling on him and Andy Dalton, like on who's going to be the starter going forward after this week, depending on how Bryce Young plays. So, I'll probably limit that to the football talk this week. I can't think of really anything else. Once again, outside of politics, which we're not going to get into on this show because there's no point in doing that. But yeah, how about you? Anything? Nothing?
No.
Basketball, hockey, nothing?
No.
Damn. I know you've been busy with family this last week, and you've had a lot of sick kids and stuff. So I'm sure you got a lot on your plate at the moment. So
Everyone, you can leave a thumbs up on the video. That helps us out. You can subscribe to the channel. You can leave a super chat, get your question, comment, statement right on the air. We should jump into wrestling.
Let's talk wrestling.
All right, let's start with...
I need to finish the story. In the WWE, the story never finishes.
Cody Rhodes, as predicted by Stephen Jensen, was victorious at Crown Jewel. He defeated Gunther. He hit him with the old Bret and Piper, Bret and Austin. And he's the Crown Jewel champion. He gets a giant ring that we may or may not see again.
Yeah, so I was right about that prediction. I'm happy about that. It seems like everyone in the chat thought it was going to be Gunther also. Please feel free in the chat to let me know why you all felt so strongly about that. Although Jeremy did make some pretty compelling, arguments, and we did talk about the potential of Kevin Owens coming in and getting involved, and that didn't wind up happening. So, I mean, we said it before the match even happened. I didn't expect to see the title belt really ever again, similar to Braun Strowman winning that Greatest Royal Rumble Championship belt and stuff. They did take a kind of a page out of New South's book. They have the Humongold, which is their world championship for New South, which we actually talked about in the Indie Spotlight, New South champion. But they famously, New South that is, has a massive world title belt, which was we've talked about it with people like Abandonman Dan and others through New South, how that title belt was a mistake. They ordered the belt, but they came way too, they didn't order a belt that huge, but it showed up, but they were like, this thing is way bigger than we asked for. But they were also like, oh, well, let's roll with this. It makes it different. We have this humongous title belt. It's kind of interesting. And, you get kind of eyes on the company and stuff like that. And the reason I say all that is because the Crown Jewel titles kind of reminded me of that, because they were humongous title belts. But to my understanding, those are just going right into whatever the WWE
it's like WWE Experience.
Yeah, whatever that's called. So fans can go and look at it. But it's similar to kind of what you were talking about last week with it being more of like a Stanley Cup trophy, which I think that's a good idea. They definitely don't need Cody carrying that around all year along with the WWE title belt or anything like that. So I think that the rings were a nice touch. It's kind of cool that because obviously Cody and Liv aren't going to be carrying those titles around all year, like I just mentioned. It's cool that they have something that they can keep with them to kind of commemorate, commemorate the experience. And it's something cool that like wrestlers can get going forward. Like if they continue to do this every year, like it sounds like they're going to do these champion versus champion matches at Crown Jewel, then it's kind of something cool that the talent can look forward to also. You know, I know that not all of them are like giant, you know, marks and fans to the level that some of us are and stuff like that. And so for some people that might not mean anything. It's like, well, who cares if you win a ring that like somebody decided you're going to win? And it's not the same as winning like a Super Bowl ring or whatever, but to them, it's still probably pretty damn cool. Like, I mean, it's cool to be recognized by the company. It's cool to be chosen as the person who's like the champion of champions for your company. Really like their main men and women's champion were really kind of, you know, decided, and it didn't really make the other champions look bad in my opinion in the process. So, you know, Gunther's still going to be fine. Nia's still going to be fine. And, you know, Cody's always talking about being QB1 and now he has like a Super Bowl ring they can walk around wearing, but I doubt that they're going to wear them all the time. Like you said, I think it's more like a kind of to, you know, to show people the night of, and maybe he'll wear it a little bit on TV, but I doubt we'll hear or see much about the Crown Jewel championship stuff until, you know, around this time next year, probably when they do it again. But I'm okay with that. You know, we also talked about how the big reason why they even did this to begin with is because, you know, the Saudi government or whoever's involved, you know, with getting the WWE over there and doing the business that they're doing with the WWE and with, you know, with PGA and with boxing and with a whole bunch of stuff and entertainment over there right now, their pockets are so deep that they expect, like, we're going to give you all this money. They want a big feeling of importance. They want it to feel like a WrestleMania when they come over there. They want there to be stakes on the show. So for them, it's, you know, for them, that's why they did this stuff. It's like, you know, we want this event to seem like a really big deal. So we're having champion versus champion. We're having brand new title belts being introduced. And then like the fans there can feel like they were a part of like an even bigger experience and stuff. So it just strengthens the relationship between Saudi and WWE and UFC and all the, you know, probably, who knows? I have no idea what their plans are for the bull riding. We haven't talked about that at all on this show, but you know, they got the bull riding associations or whatever now under TKO. I wouldn't be surprised if that started showing up in, you know, a Saudi stadium or something. And it might already be. I don't follow bull riding at all, but I know it's a pretty huge sport, especially for like advertising and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how I feel about it in a nutshell. I thought the match was good. I wasn't surprised to see Cody win because I'm going to literally predict him to win every single match that he has. So that'll stay consistent. Proud Hour Service said camel riding. That would be a very boring sport, watching people ride camels around. Bulls are that's the most insane sport. I can't believe people do that professionally, but you got to have some massive balls to do that. You also have to have massive balls to be like the clowns that like distract the bulls away from the riders that like literally get paid to get chased by bulls. Like those guys are the real psychos. Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about it, Jeremy?
Do you think Cody would make for a good bull rider?
I think Cody would be good at anything that he set his mind to.
Really?
Well, I mean, I can't tell who's going to be a good bull rider or not. I have no idea what his experience is in riding. I mean, I'm sure we rode some horses throughout his life, maybe a little bit, but all of us have been on a little, I can't say all of us, but I know growing up, I've been on a horse probably 10, 15 times, but it was like, you know, I was like a kid and you're just like on like a trail, you know, like you're not really doing anything. I would be afraid to ride a horse nowadays. I would not even attempt it. But I don't know. Who do you think would be? I wonder if anyone in the WWE does have any bull riding experience.
I feel like
Fallon Henley or somebody like you know, someone like a southern, like some random like southerner maybe, someone from Texas or something maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who might be there. I was gonna say like Brock. I feel like Brock's been on a bull before.
He's probably wrestled bulls.
Yeah,
Bull fights. those guys are also psychos. And I'm not advocating for bullfighting. I'm not like, I don't really like the idea of, I know it's like a big traditional thing in some parts of the world, and I'm not going to like down talk on people's like traditions and stuff that's important to them. But it is weird that like you're out there like watching someone like literally like slaughter a bull for sport. Like I'm not big on killing animals to begin with. I'm a giant softie when it comes to that stuff. I'm the kind of person, this might sound extreme to people, but if there's like a cockroach in my condo, like I literally like grab it with a towel and throw it outside. Like I don't even like kill insects. So like, you know, that's just how I'm wired. You know, I feel guilty about stuff like that. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, Cody would be fine. I don't think Cody would ever risk riding a bull, and I don't think the WWE would even let him anywhere near a bull because of, you know, potential injury that would be completely unnecessary. Have you heard anything about that kind of partnership or them? Like, I know that that's happened, like that they're getting involved with bull riding with TKO, but have they talked at all about how that's going to like fit into TKO or anything like beyond just knowing that it's going to be a part?
I think it's just part of their profile now. I mean, I listened to the investors call yesterday, which it's always super exciting listening to rich white people talk about how rich they are. And that was that, but they didn't mention too much. I mean, they mentioned it, but it was just, you know, we think this is a good opportunity and we look forward to adding it to our portfolio. I don't think it's gonna, I mean, maybe you'll see a bull rider in the front row of Raw, be like, hey, here's so-and-so from PBR. Go watch the PBR event on Peacock.
Well, I think they've already done that in the crowd at UFC. They've done it for the WWE or UFC recently, because I know I've definitely seen a bull rider that they showed on screen. It was probably the last UFC event. I'd imagine they'll try to have some sort of crossover. I'll be interested to see just more crossover in general between like TKO properties. Like I know Cody did an interview recently where he was talking about how you think it'd be cool for Conor McGregor to finally give WWE a shot. There's a handful of UFC fighters. Huh?
I mean, they've been doing the Conor McGregor thing for like 10 years now.
Oh,
that dude's on trial for sexual assault, so he can.
I think that's done though, isn't it? I think
unless it wrapped today, because it was literally going on yesterday.
Yeah, I saw it yesterday. I didn't read this stuff, so I don't want to like misquote or anything, but I saw Helwani like retweeting and tweeting some stuff about it.
Yeah, Helwani, I'm sure retweeted and tweeted stuff, but Helwani's not actually going to cover it.
Yeah, but he would cover the results. He would put the results.
Maybe.
So I could be wrong. I thought that Conor was clear to that stuff in court yesterday from what I was reading. I could be wrong. Regardless, it's not just a Conor thing. Like, you know, I'd be interested to see other UFC people maybe get involved, but I'd be kind of skeptical about it because I know that it didn't really work. It didn't really work well in the AEW, right? I know AEW is a different company, but like they tried to get like a bunch of those MMA guys involved with like the Dan Lambert story, like guys like Jorge Masvidal and Andrei Arlovsky and stuff like that, like who I'm a fan of. Arlovsky was a part of that, wasn't he? I remember they had like a bunch of random people. But they were all people I'm a fan of, like as far as like their fights in the UFC and stuff like that. But like it didn't really work or like bring in new fans. Really, it just kind of massively flopped, and people really didn't like Dan Lambert being involved. So, you know, maybe it isn't the best idea to get, you know, UFC fighters involved with the WWE. I don't know. And Conor is just an example, but, you know, that was an example that Cody used. So that's why I'm bringing him up. And I also agree that Conor, all the legal stuff aside, you know, it's not like this.
We're not going to say all legal stuff aside. The case is still ongoing. It hasn't been cleared as shit.
Okay. Well, fair enough then. I thought he was, but I didn't read anything into it. So that's on me. But the reason I said legal stuff aside is because even not even putting that into account, he's not the star that he was a handful of years ago. Like even as a fight fan, like every year, pretty much they say Conor's going to come back. this is going to be, this is going to be the year that, Conor returns. And they hype up a fight between him and Michael Chandler or something, and it just doesn't wind up happening. He gets out of shape. He gets in fights with people. He doesn't do stuff but bare knuckle. So like, I'm not even that interested in seeing Conor involved in the WWE to begin with anyways, is really my point. So I don't know. We'll see. I'd be interested to see if there's anybody else in the UFC that's like, would be a good fit for the WWE, but there's no point in them really doing it until they're like, most of the UFC fighters don't really have an incentive to try to get into pro wrestling until their UFC careers are declining. You know what I mean? Like, and then by then their star power is going to be kind of on the downside anyway. I doubt they're going to be getting like the top fighters crossing over in like the prime of their career. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't think of anybody who would make sense to go to WWE now. So I know Tom Aspinall. What?
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say like Poatan Pereira, like he's at least interesting because he fights so regularly, like someone like that who's a champion who's beaten Adesanya and stuff. Who did you just say?
Tom Aspinall. Yeah, he was part of the events when they were overseas like a month or so ago.
He'd be a good one. It's interesting too because the heavyweight fighters we think to be so huge in the UFC because they are the biggest weight class of obviously, but there's a lot of WWE wrestlers like Randy Orton, for instance, who's obviously a big guy. He's probably bigger than Tom Aspinall or like around the same size, but we don't really think about it like that because we're so used to seeing Randy Orton and other people around Randy Orton's size in pro wrestling. But it's interesting because even like when I'm watching NFL, like Derrick Henry is the size of a UFC heavyweight and he's a running back in the NFL. It's just kind of weird which is kind of interesting when you kind of compare the sports and like, but Tom Aspinall is a good call. Like, he's in an interesting spot because I think Tom Aspinall is super marketable. I think he seems like a good guy. He's a great fighter and people are behind him because John Jones won't fight him. And it's like, John Jones is going to fight Stipe Miocic in a fight that is a super fight, but it's a fight that doesn't really make a lot of sense because Stipe hasn't fought in so long, neither has John. And Aspinall is walking around with a championship belt that he legitimately earned, and people want to see him defend against the best guys in the world so he can have a chance to prove that he is the best in the world. So Aspinall is definitely a guy that I'm behind that I think wrestling fans would probably get behind too. And he does good interviews and stuff. He seems like he's a likable guy from what I can tell.
Yeah, I don't know what his desire is. I assume he wants to fight the winner of John Jones and Stipe, and maybe he'll get that fight until Dana just does a rematch for no reason.
Yeah, that's also possible, but I guess that's we can move on to the next WWE topic. There's not a whole lot more I could really have to say about Cody. Obviously I'm happy that Cody won, but I'm obviously super biased, and every single time Cody wrestles, I'm going to pick Cody. So, I was right, but a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So,
Do you think he's going to like carry that ring around for all the way until next year? Like it's always going to be on television, even like when he loses the WWE title, it's going to be like the Rock and the People's title. He's going to be like, yeah, I might have lost that, but I still got this ring.
No, I doubt it. I honestly doubt that the ring is going to be a part of like anything going. Like it might be on TV for a little while, but I really don't think it's going to be. I just don't think it's going to be a thing because it doesn't have anything to do with kind of like the whatever you want to call it. It's part of WWE's.
Do you think Kevin Owens like takes a sledgehammer and like smashes it?
No, but that's not a bad idea. I mean, I wouldn't be like opposed to something like that. They gave one to Liv though, also. So we kind of echo this for her too, as far as like I just don't think that both of them are going to be walking around with the. I don't know. It just isn't. It can't canon's the word I'm looking for. It's almost like a non-canon, like a side quest, like when Blink-182 was huge. They're still big, obviously, but like when they were huge, but then like all of a sudden, like they're not doing music, but like you get Boxcar Racer, and it's like that's not Blink-182, but like it happened. It's kind of like that's kind of how I feel about the Saudi titles and the rings and stuff. It's almost like a non-canon side quest that they went on that I don't think is going to have really anything to do with the actual, because I think like the less the better as far as like them mentioning, Nia and Gunther losing too. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're going to like constantly remind the audience that that this is the best chance. I mean, because it really shouldn't be the case. Obviously I'm biased and I want Cody to be presented as the top guy in the company because I think he deserves it. I think he should be the face of the company, but I don't think that they should like constantly remind the audience that Gunther lost to him while Gunther is the world champion. You know what I mean?
Well, it moved on. Gunther's going to face Damian Priest now.
Yeah, sure. That'll be good. And I expect Gunther to retain.
Yeah. I hope Cody just continues to wear it, and then he just brags about that he's got this giant ring until Kevin Owens smashes it or like tosses it into the ocean or something.
That whatever they need to do to heat up Kevin Owens more to, get him and Cody again, I'm fine with that. I have no personal attachment at all to the ring or the.
Oh, you're gonna buy one of those. I'm sure they got shirts on sale where Cody's like Crown Jewel champion. Like, you're gonna get one of those, right?
I don't know. I mean, if they go on sale enough, like at some point, they're not really. Dude, y'all know I have a ton of Cody Rhodes merch. I have the shirt for when he won the Royal Rumble and the shirt from when he won the title at WrestleMania and stuff like that. But once again, I'm like everyone else when it comes to. I can't talk for everyone else, but I'm like what I feel like most wrestling fans feel about the Saudi shows just in general. Like, they're just not, like I said, they're just kind of non-canon. Like Shawn Michaels doesn't even admit that he came out of retirement for one of these. You know what I mean? Like, we all saw it happen, but like he doesn't really consider it a match for whatever reason. He's like, yeah, it was just me like coming out and like hanging out with a friend. It's like, no, you came out of retirement for like $3 million and had one of the worst matches we've ever seen. It wasn't just on him, all four guys. Like, it was just and there was injuries. It was just a bad experience. But it was so non-canon that like the WWE doesn't even like recognize it, and like either does Shawn. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I feel about it. They're money grab events, but I understand why the WWE takes the money. I don't agree with there was the whole blood money thing and all that stuff years ago. There's still my reservations about some of this stuff is like on like a personal level, but I understand on a business level when they're throwing millions and millions and millions of dollars at your head and they're asking you to come, multiple times a year and basically put on a WrestleMania level show. That's why we're getting the stuff that we're getting.
Doesn't look like they have any Crown Jewel merchandise. Very sad. Oh well.
Yeah, well, they should have. What I will buy from that is, I think that I believe the poster for the event is like all four of the main champions on the poster. I think it was Cody, Gunther, Liv, and Nia from what I saw whenever I searched it on maybe like Wikipedia or something. But I'll buy the event poster whenever it's available on WWE Shop. I buy all the posters that have Cody with the world title on them. So
are you gonna get this Crown or not Crown Jewel? It's Cody Rhodes Christmas sweater.
You have a picture of it? Can you pull it up?
I haven't seen it yet. Hold on.
I wonder if it's the one they had last year, if it's a new one.
I assume it's the one God, if they make just new Cody Rhodes, there you go.
Oh, that is new. I have not seen that. I will probably not purchase that one.
Cowardly.
I would look too bad. Oh, but something I did get recently that you might think is cool. I think I sent you a picture of. I got a signed UFC CM Punk. That was pretty cool. A UFC CM Punk. But I got this.
Oh, nice.
Very cool. I know we were both at that event, so
yeah.
And I was like, when Danielson was retiring, I was like, I don't have any Danielson autos, so I got to get a frame for that, and I'll put it up behind me. So, hopefully I'll get it in frame, like right behind me here, so everyone can see it every week. But yeah, I don't think I'll be buying that Cody sweater. I will be buying more Cody merch for the holidays though. But everyone, we got Black Friday coming up. We have other deals, Walmart, and I think Walmart does like the 11th through the 18th or something like that. A heads up to everyone. Target does stuff usually. This is the best time of year, but you got to wait on the deals. Get good deals. this is when I do like the majority of like my shopping for like, you know, the holidays and like the whole next year is like Prime Days and Black Friday deals is what I'm all about. And WWE usually has stuff, you know, for sale and stuff too. So I would recommend anyone who wants to buy stuff right now, hold off for like a few days or like till later in the month, and you're going to get some good deals.
NXT last night with the ECW influence, Javon Evans, Wes Lee, Rob Van Dam got involved after he was attacked backstage. This tweet just came out, so I don't know if you've seen it, but you know, somebody said that, oh, I wish RVD had a match on the show last night. And RVD said, me too, but I'll be back. So it seems like they might do RVD and Wes Lee at some point. But I really want to focus on Javon Evans because we talk a little bit about him in our interview with Brandon and Gerard, Jay Malakai. And now he is Javon Evans and succeeding in NXT. This is really like his first big win. I know you don't keep up too much on NXT, but basically they were talking about how he just loses all of his big matches. You know, he couldn't win the NXT title despite being in the four-way match and, you know, having a crack at it. He couldn't beat Randy Orton. They couldn't win the tag team titles. So beating Wes Lee, former NXT champion or NXT North American champion, is like a big win. And this is his first kind of big win. You get the RVD stamp here. So I don't know, what'd you think of this match? And then just kind of Javon's rise in NXT.
So I was a fan of his on the indies, as you mentioned, as Jay Malakai. I got to see him live at shows like Battle Slam. I think he did CDW too. I can't remember for sure. But I know I'd seen him a handful of times in the Atlanta area during his during his pretty quick indie run. Like he wasn't around for a super long time. Like he just had a ton of talent and people recognized it fast. And he's like, I don't know how tall he is, but like he's a fairly big guy. Like it was one of those guys like you can tell like he's gonna do something on the next level. But I didn't expect it to be so fast. And that's not on him. That's just like in general. I don't, you know, it was like wow, like, you know, and you know, as far as what I have seen of him on NXT, unfortunately, I saw like he had like that weird finish with Randy Orton that like everyone was talking about where like it was essentially like a botch. Last night he went for that frog splash when Wes was like all the way across the ring and the camera. I don't know if I saw like a post camera angle when I watched the highlights of it, but like it looked like the camera was purposely trying to show him not landing on his feet because it looks like he didn't make it all the way across the ring to hit the frog spot. Still impressive to get that far across the ring. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I can do that, but and I understand what they were going for. Rob Van Dam's on the outside of the ring. He's trying to do like, you know, a really impressive 5-star frog splash right in front of him to finish off Wes. So I appreciate the attempts. You know, he's got to kind of clean some of that stuff up, but it's not like I'm the one who needs to tell him that. Like, I mean, he knows that the second it happens, the producers, the people, the WWE, I'm sure they're telling him like, oh, that didn't come across exactly how he wanted it to. But like, you know, I respect people who go for it though. You know, like he's an innovative guy. Even on the indie scene, he was doing certain dives and springboards and stuff, you know, in these like multi-man matches and stuff where I was like, he was really standing out. And I remember him doing some stuff on West Coast Pro as well around that time. And he got over like immediately in front of that audience. So it was one of those things where you just knew there was big things for him. Like I said, between his size, his athleticism, and his ability to get over in front of every crowd I saw him work in front of, you know, he has real star qualities. And also this is when, like, if you're going to make mistakes or like botch or whatever you want to call it, NXT is like better there than like it happening on Raw or SmackDown, right? Like, I mean, this is where like it's good to flesh stuff out and like try new stuff and get innovative and go for it. Which so in those respects, I do really, you know, I like that Javon Evans is bringing something different to the table. As far as as far as Wes Lee and Rob Van Dam are concerned, I definitely expect there to be a Wes Lee versus Rob Van Dam match. I was thinking that the moment that Wes Lee attacked Rob Van Dam backstage, I think it'd be funny. Obviously, they're not going to do this story. I'm just being stupid, but I'm just thinking it's kind of funny. Would be like, because we know the Rascals are into the 420 life, right? That's a big part of their a big part of their gimmick and their gear and stuff was, you know, they're into the 420, and obviously Rob Van Dam has made a career out of being into the 420. I think it'd be kind of funny if this whole feud was sparked because like Rob Van Dam sold Wes mids or something. You know what I mean? He's like, man, you gave me some bunk stuff. Like, I don't know.
Then RVD's the heel because
I know he would be.
we know RVD's not like. That's not the stuff he's using, so he's a bad person for selling him some bad stuff.
But is he a good guy because he's like, when we're talking about like, you know, like I'm talking about just like low grade, you know, like how like in high school, you know, kids would get sold like catnip or like pencil shavings or something like that, like oregano, you know, like they would be more of like a babyface move if you, because Wes Lee is the heel, so it's like Rob Van Dam's like. You know, remember like in Pineapple Express, whenever there's that scene where Seth Rogen like goes to buy from James Franco and he's like, and James Franco's like got another guy coming over that he doesn't like that's about to buy from him. So he's like, this guy's getting the snizzle frizz. You know what I mean? It's like he's not getting the good stuff, he's getting the snizzle frizz. So you know, that's only like crossover between like Wes Lee and Rob Van Dam that I could really think about is like kind of they're both of them being 420 friendly or whatever. But they also, Wes is obviously a great in-ring wrestler. I've been a fan of the Rascals forever, and I like what he's doing on his own in NXT from the stuff that I've seen. You know, I liked him as a heel. I think him and Rob Van Dam will wind up having a good match, and it's not surprising at all to me that Rob is kind of alluding to having an NXT match, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was a more regular part of the show going forward. I mean, we saw him pop up in AEW a few times. Rob's still in good shape. I don't need to see him, you know, on a weekly basis or anything like that necessarily, but because we saw that in like TNA or Impact for a little while too, and it was kind of like, you know, it was what it was. But I'm always going to be a Rob Van Dam fan at the end of the day. He's a guy, you know, we both grew up on, and who's still, I mean, yeah, he's like, you know, he's got to put some extra color in his hair, and he's got like his face is a little more, you know, looks a little older and stuff. But for the most part, he looks pretty much the same as he always has, which is a real credit to him for like staying in this kind of shape this whole time. And so I have no problem with Rob Van Dam being involved and trying to help some younger guys while he's around.
Yeah, I think if RVD and Wes Lee have a match, it'll be good. Like his matches on AEW, he's wrestled as much as this year have been good. So Wes Lee's obviously a great in-ring performer. So, and RVD can't do everything he used to do, but the man has always stayed in good shape through, you know, physical, through yoga and just all the training that he does. So it should be a good match. As far as Javon Evans goes, like I know they want to create these like viral moments with him. Mm-hmm. It should probably just like tone that back and just let the man wrestle. Like,
sure,
you know, the RKO thing was a good attempt, but it didn't fully work. Yeah, last night they only showed the one camera angle. I assume you saw the live angle, which was the only one I remember. I don't remember them showing a replay. Maybe they did, and I just missed it. But yeah, the camera cut was weird because he very clearly landed like on his feet and then just kind of fell onto Wes Lee, and like it didn't look good. It didn't come off good live. We couldn't even see like how far away he was. Like we could tell he was pretty far away, but we couldn't see exactly how far away he was. But it was a weird live angle, and it didn't come across like great on that. So I just wish they would be like, instead of like, we know he's good, we know he's you know, bouncy, and like he can get a lot of height and a lot of air, but maybe just like don't rely so much on that to create these, oh, look at this sweet moment, and just kind of like let him wrestle. Like if the moment happens, awesome, but also just like let him wrestle.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's what I was getting at when I was talking about like the couple botches that I've seen him have. Like it just, I'm 100% on the same page as you with all that. Like I that's why I say like I appreciate him trying to be innovative and be different and like stand out, but I don't want that to happen at the expense of like him going for stuff that, you know, just isn't working. And like, you know, I don't want him going viral for the wrong reasons, I guess. You know what I mean? Like I want him to be successful. I like the guy. I've met him in person before, and he was you know, you never really know, right? I mean, I can't say like he's a good person just because I met him, but he was very nice to me. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I say about a lot of these wrestlers, whether I know them on a personal level or not. From what I know from actually shaking the guy's hand and like talking to him for a couple of minutes at Battle Slam and stuff, it's like you root for these guys. You're like, hey, this guy's got a good head on his shoulders, and I think that he's obviously a hard worker, and he's rose the ranks really quickly, and he's just trying to take advantage of being in a good spot so fast too. Like, he probably recognizes like, wow, they're really pushing me here, and I'm in front of a lot of people. Like, if I do this sweet move into the RKO or whatever, like, that's gonna be like he's not doing this stuff to like piss wrestling fans off. He's doing this stuff to like stand out, And so I appreciate what he's trying to do, but like both of us have said, probably tone it back just a little bit, because if Wes Lee just stays in the middle of the ring and he just hits a really sweet 5-star frog splash, we're just like, that was badass. Javon Evans did a 5-star in front of Rob Van Dam. Made perfect sense. But instead, we're talking about how Wes Lee was out of the frame. They clearly made the camera angle so that you didn't see Javon's legs hit the mat first. And so instead, we're talking about that instead of him just hitting a 5-star. So, I mean, that's kind of to both of our points. Exactly.
Yeah. We can get to our next topic.
Over 1 million fans and a great number in the demo tuned in. And it was a great show, and I think it's been a run of great shows.
AEW last night, Powerhouse Hobbs returned. He was the mystery partner for Ricochet, and then we had a big kind of brawl at the end with Mark Davis coming out and Will Ospreay returning. Ricochet pinned Takeshita. What do you make of this whole Powerhouse returning? Don Callis fumbling another talent, not realizing when the contract was up, and then the big closing brawl.
Well, start with the closing brawl, I guess. Ospreay got a big pop and everything, as you would expect. It's interesting to see Mark Davis. I mean, Mark Davis should be involved in this, because I think it's better than them just like ignoring the past between him and Fletcher and Ospreay as Aussie Open and stuff. Like, if Davis is back and he's healthy, I think he should be involved. But I do, unfortunately for him, I think he's going to wind up being kind of more like cannon fodder or anything when it comes to the story, though, because this is just me personally. I doubt that they have the same level of plans for Mark Davis long term as they do for Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. Like, I think that they see like massive stars in both of those two. And to be fair, Davis has been injured for a while, so like, can he get back in that mix? He already is. Obviously, he's a part of the storyline. But even when Fletcher and Davis were a tag team, Fletcher always stood out to me as like, that guy could be a massive single star. I never really felt that about Mark Davis, but maybe I'm being unfair, and maybe Mark Davis can like really surprise me. That's happened plenty of times in the past too, where I see a tag team, they split up, and then the one who I thought was like the lesser star or whatever of the group actually wound up being the better of the two and wound up having a better career and stuff. So like, you never know. But as far as like Hobbs actually returning, I think that where I think this is all heading is, for one, as you mentioned, the Don Callis family thing. I didn't expect him to be a part of that when he came back, because that group has changed a lot since Hobbs left, and I didn't see him really being a great fit in that group if he returned, like when he returned. But what I do foresee happening is the Hurt Syndicate has been courting Ricochet and teasing like him potentially joining, and Ricochet hasn't really given them a clear answer one way or another. He's kind of vibing like, no, I'm not interested, but like when they all walk away, he's still kind of like, straightens up his jacket and kind of seems like, oh, maybe I'll consider it. But the reason that I think they're doing this the way that they are is because Hobbs is going to turn on Ricochet and join the Hurt Syndicate is my long term. And I don't know if that happens like next week, if that happens like a few months from now. I don't know how often they'll have Ricochet and Hobbs teaming, but I don't think it's a coincidence that Ricochet has been so tied to the Hurt Syndicate story, and then his partner winds up being Will Hobbs, and Will Hobbs is somebody who I think right here on the show, probably last week or so, I think we were talking about Hobbs maybe being a part of the Hurt Syndicate. There's a few other names too, like Leo Rush would make sense. I've seen people throw Wardlow's name out there as maybe making sense. So like I'm just saying, I'm not saying me. I'm just saying I've heard people bring up Ward. I'm like,
why do people want Wardlow in any faction again? Like, we've been there with this. Wardlow also
agree.
like Wardlow's like kind of a big dude in the AEW universe. Him next to Bobby Lashley, you're gonna see how small that guy actually is. Him next to Shelton Benjamin, you might see how small that guy actually is.
Yeah, and the thing with Wardlow is like, it's like I don't want to see him in another group, but it also hasn't worked with him on his own, and I definitely don't want to see him back with MJF again, which I feel like could happen. And it's like, I don't know what you do with him. I really don't. Outside of like him heading to another company or something, but that's hypothetical. I gotta assume he's with WWE with AEW at least for the foreseeable future. But anyway, that was just the name that was thrown out there. But I think Hobbs is a perfect fit. Like he really, I think, would make sense for the group, and I think that Hobbs is the guy that the company should push. He's a guy who's basically a day one homegrown AEW guy. They've tried over the years to really do more with him. I think, wasn't it the time he was about to get in a feud with either CM Punk or John Moxley or one of those two, and like he got hurt like right before the feud was able to happen, I want to say. So like there's been times where Hobbs, it looked like he was going to really break through. He had his feud with Wardlow over the TNT title and stuff like that. But I feel like Hobbs has a lot more that he can offer to AEW and to wrestling in general. So if the Hurt Syndicate is a way of him, getting more over and staying over and becoming a bigger star long term, I'm all for it. So anyway, I think that's my prediction is that maybe I still think Lio Rush is a great fit because of his history with Lashley and everything. But if I had to pick one person off the roster right now, I think it would be the best fit to join the Hurt Syndicate based on the storyline. I think that Powerhouse Hobbs turning on Ricochet and joining the Hurt Syndicate makes a lot of sense.
I would like Hobbs in that position. Lio Rush is great. It feels like we kind of know what we're getting with Lio Rush. And look, they can add more. It's not like you got to cap it at 4. You can go to 5. Hobbs is a guy that you can elevate actually in this group. I think the issue with Hobbs is, can he stand out next to Lashley and Shelton? Like Leo's going to stand out because he's different than those two.
Right.
Leo, he wrestles in a completely different style, and that's going to stand out. Hobbs kind of already similar to Lashley in like the power kind of style. So it might be a little bit tougher for him to stand out in that. But I also just kind of like that, like Paul Jar finisher said, like I just stick to bigger guys. Yeah, just a group of just monsters running through people. Like I think it'd be great. Leo and Lashley worked because Leo was the mic person for Lashley, and the dynamic between them with the big and small was different. MVP is the mic person for the group, so Leo, not that his microphone skills wouldn't be valued in the group, but it's not going to be valued the same way it was when it was just him and Lashley in WWE, because MVP is that guy now. But I do like it, just big dudes just running through people. So I think Hobbs would be the right call if they do add another person to the group, and we'll see if they actually do that. But it was nice to see Hobbs back just on television last night. He'd been cleared for a couple weeks now, and it was like, whoa, when's he gonna return? And thought they made it make sense with everything. Don Callis is an awful manager, like just
like
terrible.
Business wise.
Yeah,
he's
terrible. Like he has a tag team in Cage and Archer, and then he's got Fletcher, who's like, anyway, I want to team with Takeshita and go after the tag team title. Like, you just got a tag team. You got to get your guys in line. Like, no, Kyle, let's go after like the TNT title. That's the title we should be focused on. Let's go after the Continental title. Takeshita is the international champion. You got Cage and Archer to go after the tag team titles, and then you don't know when a contract is expiring. How is this not? It ain't like you got that many people under contract here. Like, it's a 5-page list. You see when the contract is expiring. Just awful management by Don Callis. Like, in kayfabe,
No,
he's
I know.
honestly
I know.
terrible at his job.
No, I know. I know what you're saying. I know you're right. That is pretty funny. And has and this is because I've been out of the loop on Collision and Rampage, but has Jake the Snake
He's been on Collision. Yeah, he's
so
been
that's
on Collision.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're doing something with that at least. I was hoping that they didn't just make that trade and then completely forget that happened or anything. So that's good. That's good. Has that worked out all right? Is he basically like being like their mouthpiece for the group? Because it seemed like kind of a weird pairing, but it makes sense if like he's gonna kind of like talk the group up.
They've done some vignettes where Jake the Snake has talked, and then Roosh has done like some backstage promos. He's also been ringside. They have a match as part of the Full Gear qualifiers. I forget who they're facing in it. Most people assume that they're gonna win. But yeah, they have a match in that. I imagine he'll be ringside for that. But like he's been there. It's not like they've just completely. He hasn't been there and done anything. But yeah, he's been there for them. It's been fine.
Cool. Well, good for him. I mean, or good for that whole group. Really, there's a lot of talent there. But yeah, I've said it before on the show. I'll just mention it again for anyone who might have missed it. But I don't understand why they even broke up Lance Archer and Jake the Snake. They they were a good pairing. They just never used them on TV. I don't know what happened. They just stopped using them completely, pretty much, and like. It felt like it was years since we saw the two of them together. They were a pretty big part of like the early AEW as a manager and wrestler combo. But then it's like, oh, you have access to both of them. They're both totally ready to go. Like, but instead you're gonna break them up and make this weird trade, and like it just seemed kind of strange. I felt like they broke something that didn't need to be fixed. It's like they fixed the toy that they never played with. Like, it's like the toy was fine. Like, why didn't you use it when you had it? But that's just me personally, though. Like, there's other people who might think that the pairing was stupid and it didn't work. You might not like Jake the Snake. You might not like Lance Archer. I don't know. But from my standpoint as a pro wrestling fan, I thought the pairing made sense. And I think that Lance Archer, I mean, remember back in the early AEW days when, I can't believe we're already saying early AEW days. It's already been that long. But like, remember when Lance Archer beat Jon Moxley for the IWGP US title on Dynamite in the main event, in a death match or Texas death match, or whatever. I mean, he was a guy. Like, he was a guy in the company. He was a legit guy in the company. And then, just they stopped using him. So is what it is.
Yeah, they heated him up for Battle of the Belts, and that was about it.
Yeah. And, I understand they have a huge roster and, there's only so many spots to go around and stuff, but I kind of feel like Archer and Jake the Snake just got a bad shake as a pairing. I thought it worked well.
Yeah, like they were fine. They just never really did anything with it. And then they acquired guys, and Lance Archer just got surpassed on the depth chart. That's basically what happened.
Exactly. Yeah. So
the other topic from AEW is Adam Cole defeated Malakai Black. So he's now won 2 matches. Not that it matters anymore, because Adam Cole after the match was like, so anyway, if we both win 3 matches, we both are, it's going to be a triple threat match. It's like, all right, cool. Now, like, there's still some intrigue there, but it's no longer a race to get there, which I thought was strange in the first place, that like Roderick Strong had no real sense of urgency of, oh, I should probably try to win 3 matches to get this match against MJF. And Adam Cole was like offended that Buddy Matthews wanted to face him, and then was about to leave the match until Buddy Matthews called him a bitch. And then he finally came back to the match.
Right.
But anyway, Adam Cole beat Malakai Black. Malakai Black was like, thank you, Booker Man. And then they shook hands, and he got a send off, and it doesn't sound like he's leaving. So here's the report from Fightful Select. It seemed like that was a send off. The report from Fightful Select is the word backstage in AEW in recent months was that they believed he would be done towards the end of 2024 or early 2025. That has not been confirmed. Yeah, Tony Khan said in 2022 that Malakai was under contract for like 5 years. So don't know what the full story is with Malakai. It looked like a send-off last night, though. That was just weird.
It was very weird. It was, especially for like how Buddy kind of like, you know, treated Adam Cole, and like you just mentioned, calling him a bitch during the match and having this match like prove how fragile he is and this kind of stuff. And then obviously Malakai is tag team partners, stablemates with Buddy. I figured the third match would be Brody King. Like I just figured that Adam Cole would have to wrestle all three members of House of Black. Kind of makes sense. But he's going to be Takeshita, right? Didn't they advertise it's going to be Takeshita instead? So
that's a weird one.
It is.
I'd have Cole lose.
I'm not opposed to that, honestly. I'm really not. And that's partly because I'm so down on this whole Undisputed Kingdom MJF stuff that like I legitimately, it's like I want it to fail, but it's like I feel like it already has failed, so like I just don't really care that much. And then like you said, there's no way it's not going to be a triple threat match. They essentially advertised it last night. So
well, it's not a triple threat match if Takeshita wins, then Cole doesn't get 3. I guess. I mean, it used to be first to 3. Now it's just 3 victories. So I guess theoretically he could lose next week and then beat Brody King in a match a week later. And then it's like, well, he's still got 3 victories. So
that's a good point that I hadn't considered, that I bet not many people have considered that are watching this. That's actually a really good point, because technically speaking, he could lose. Even though I think that's not a good idea, like given the storyline, but I also wouldn't have Takeshita lose right now.
I would not have Takeshita lose back-to-back weeks. Like he took the pin last night in the tag team match. Like fine, singles champion losing a tag team match. It's to set up Ricochet to get the title match. Like, okay, kind of get it. I would not have him lose back-to-back weeks. Look, big man, I'm with you. I wouldn't have Brody lose to Cole either, but that's what they're kind of setting up with Cole beating House of Black members. So it would make sense. Like, I think there's singles potential in Brody King. The fact that they seem gun shy on it is strange to me, because coming out of the Continental Classic, it looked like they could have done more. Coming out of the match with Darby, it looked like, oh, maybe this is going to be something. And then he hasn't even been. Has he been on TV since since losing to Darby?
I don't think so. This happened multiple times, right? Because remember when he choked Darby out with like the chain like a while back, and then they still didn't like capitalize on that either. Yeah,
like they won't go with Brody as a singles guy, which I don't know why, but is what it is. Look, I'd have Takeshita beat Cole next week. I wouldn't have him lose back-to-back weeks, and Cole can beat somebody else, whether it is finishing House of Black off and going through that gauntlet, or he's just like, well, shit, all I gotta do is win 3 matches. It doesn't really matter who I beat. Where's Aaron Solo out? Bring him out here. Let me pin him right fast. Come on, Aaron Solo. Like, just do something like that. Because Roddy beat Shane Taylor as one of his matches. Like, no knock on Shane Taylor. I think we both agree that Shane Taylor's like fantastic, but Shane Taylor has won one match on AEW television his entire career. Maybe like might be generous to say he's won one match on like AEW proper. I know he's won a bunch of stuff in like ROH, but like AEW, I'm actually gonna look and see.
I can't remember unless it was maybe him in a tag team with.
It was this was on Rampage. It was a 6-man tag. He's won a couple of tag team matches on like Rampage and Collision. Singles matches, I'd be hard pressed to find like a singles match he has won on AEW TV. He's literally never. AEW Dark. If you want to go back to AEW Dark in January 2023. Otherwise, Shane Taylor's never won a singles match on AEW television. So like, yeah, Roderick Strong beating Shane Taylor. It's like, all right, sure. He loses literally every singles match he's in. And I don't know who Roddy's facing next. I don't think they've advertised anything for him.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen anything. So as far as like being advertised. So, and we talked about that too, about, Power Driver Finisher says in the chat, the premier athletes. I was saying like the Dark Order, like I thought it was strange that like it was this race to 3, but now it really just is. like it doesn't seem like a real urgency to get to 3 because as long as both get to 3, then like so it's kind of they just keep shooting themselves in the foot with this whole story, in my opinion. I'm just not into it. I mean,
they were honestly better off just like doing Adam Cole and MJF, just doing the match as Adam Cole's big return match on Dynamite and being done with it, and then moving forward with it. Like, I understand you want to do the match, you want to put a bow on that whole thing because it did take up so much of 2023, and it was the hottest thing in the company at one point. Like, it headlined All In, justifiably so. It was a big match, but then everything that happened afterwards, and then the injuries and stuff, it lost a lot of luster. Now you're not only like trying to make it happen, like you're trying to make it happen over the course of like months between Wrestle Dream and Full Gear. Like that's
really a month and a half, probably.
And potentially, I don't want to speculate and say it's going to go on to World's End, but yeah, potentially. Like, you're trying to make it happen over the course of at least a month and a half between Wrestle Dream was first weekend of October, Full Gear's almost last weekend of November. So they're trying to make it happen over 6 weeks or so, and they're not doing it in the best way of, hey, just win 3 matches, first to 3. Well, now it's actually just win 3.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, I don't want to forget to talk about Malakai real quick. I know that, so I think in that Fightful report, you may have just said it also, but I glanced over it, and it said something about him potentially having option years, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be the real key to Malakai's future in the AEW. I feel like is because I remember there was the rumors that he wanted out a while ago. There was like heavy rumors about that, even to the point where like people may not know this, and I feel like I'm okay to talk about it now. I didn't at the time, but like I had a friend of a friend. Well, actually, he's a friend of mine. It's not even a friend of a friend. It's someone I consider a friend. He got a birthday cameo a couple years ago from Malakai, and the guy he let me watch the cameo. He didn't like post it or anything, but it was a it was a great, like, Malakai gave a great like speech to the guy for his birthday. Like, you know, he was basically talking about like, you know, he's like, you know, talking about how like no matter how old you get, like it's awesome that like you stay a wrestling fan, and like he talked about how much he loves wrestling and how much he loves his fan. Like, it was a really, really heartfelt message. But what was so interesting about it, and why I never said anything about it, is because at the beginning of that message, he said, "This is me talking to you as Tommy End, and I haven't been able to do that for a while." And that's when I was like, he's got to be leaving. He's talking about being Tommy End in cameos to people. Like, he's not using Malakai Black. To me, it felt like he wanted out at that point, or he was going to be out. And there was a lot of reports about him leaving and going back to WWE around that time. And obviously he didn't leave. So he's still there. And I don't know if he plans to stay there going forward, but like if he wants out, then it's going to be up to Tony Khan on if he's going to pick the options up. I think it's pretty obvious, or I don't want to speak for anybody, but you know, that was a big thing with Cody. When Cody left, he had another year left on his deal as an option that Tony didn't pick up. And it's like, look where Cody's at now with the WWE. Like, maybe you pick that option up, maybe you figure things out over the next year, and maybe Cody never goes back to the WWE, and like you've still got him, and like who knows how the wrestling world looks right now if that never happens. So, you know, I doubt that Tony's like jonesing to get rid of Malakai Black. He's a great talent, but his booking in AEW has just been very, very strange. There's years of time apart basically where like he was even like featured on Dynamite at all. He didn't have like any singles matches for like years until recently and stuff. But like when he came into AEW, he kicked Cody's head off. You know, they made him a humongous deal right off the bat, and you felt like he was going to be a world champion, like for sure. It was just inevitable, a matter of time before he was like their top guy. And so, you know, but last night it felt like he was leaving. I mean, that was because he's not like a babyface wrestler. You know, he hasn't been presented as like a good guy on the show recently. It's not, you know what I mean? So for him to kind of like almost have like a babyface turn, hug Adam Cole and be like, and kind of have his send off. The crowd's all chanting for Malakai, and he looks back from the entrance ramp as if like he's leaving for the last time. So I was very confused by all of it. It is worth mentioning our friend, someone who's been on the show before, Justin Wang, one of the best YouTubers of all time, in my opinion. Go check out his YouTube channel. He tweeted last night a quote tweet that says, I was just chilling with him last week. He's not injured, leaving, or retiring. And, you know, Wang is legitimately a friend of his. Like they've done YouTube and other content together. So I believe, I don't know why, I don't think Wang has any reason to lie about that. And I don't know if things have changed with Malakai's contract. I don't know if there's something Wang maybe doesn't know. I have no idea what their extent of their conversations are, but like, I believe that him and Wang had some sort of talk about it, and like Wang is confident in whatever he was told, that he isn't retiring or leaving or anything anytime soon. So, it's just strange, right? Maybe it's just the catalyst for like a bigger babyface turn, or maybe a singles run or something for him in AEW. But I don't know. You know what I mean? I know you just said like but I don't know why else they do. Everyone's got to be so confused about like why they, like, if he isn't leaving, why did they do this? You know,
I think if he wants to leave, if he has option years and he wants to go, just let him.
I don't disagree with that. That'd be easiest for everybody involved, probably.
I don't think Tony is losing too much sleep over Malakai potentially leaving. Like, Cody was going to be a big deal always. He was one of the founding people of the company. Like, that's a big deal. Malakai's good, but it's not like he's been consistently booked on television. The most WWE is going to do with him is probably similar to what AEW is going to do with him, and he'll be involved in his lore stuff that he really likes, that I think there's kind of a ceiling on that sort of stuff. And it's not bad. Like, there's a spot for it on certainly on WWE television, but I just don't know how high you're gonna reach with that kind of stuff. And it'd be fine. A lot of that's not for me. Like, I've always made that very clear. Like, a lot of the House of Black stuff, I wish they'd get back to like misting people and stuff. That was pretty cool. Like, now it's just like, all right, you guys are just like kind of spooky people who just wrestle, and I don't really know what the point of you is. I like Brody King. King tossing dudes is sweet, but the group in and of itself, I'm just waiting for Julia Hart to return and add a little bit more to that group. So I think if he wants to leave, I'd probably just let him be like, all right, sure, go for it.
Yeah, Big Man Dogs he says he's half joking with the comment. He says, a reason to lie, the Lucha Bros situation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not necessarily I think that, if I wanted out, I wouldn't be publicly talking about it. I don't think there's any real reason to, honestly, either. I mean, I won't want to speak for other people. Everyone's going to be different in their own, like, in the way that they do business and handle stuff. But like, I'm a big fan of people, you know, mutually coming up with decisions collectively that work for everybody. You know, like, if there's a way that Malakai can leave AEW and Tony doesn't really need him anyways, and Malakai's going to be happier somewhere else, and Tony isn't losing any sleep over it, it seems pretty amicable, right? Like, there's not always like a need for people to be fighting each other over contracts and time served and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Like, I want to, but as far as like Brody King goes, I couldn't agree more. I think that Brody should get a big push. I've always been a big fan of his. He's also a guy who he pulling back the curtain a little bit. He goes to one of my local toy stores. He's a big retro action figure collector, Brody. He's around town where I live, and, you know, everyone, like, I know the guy who owns the toy store. And I don't want to say the name of it because I don't want to like dox anyone and have people like hanging out, like trying to find Brody. But like, I know the owner of the toy store, and the guy has told me every time Brody comes in, like, he's like the nicest guy in the world. He's like, he comes in and shakes everyone's hands. And like, a lot of the time people do recognize him when he's in there, and he'll sign stuff for people. And like, he's but he's a really low key guy. Like he's just like a normal dude who like he's a nerd like I am. Like he likes collecting action figures and stuff. Like, you know, I have connections more to those kind of guys that I know are lifelong fans and grew up on the same 90s stuff that I grew up on and have the same love of nostalgia and stuff as I do. So I'm a big fan of Brody on a personal level and on a professional level. So, you know, they've stopped and started his pushes a lot in AEW, but he's got all the tools. He checks every box. Like he's different. He's a big guy, but he looks different. He wrestles different. He can do everything. He can do singles matches. He can do trios matches, like whatever it is. Like he's going to knock it out of the park in any situation that he's in. And I think he's proved that time and time again in Ring of Honor and in AEW over the years. So, you know, if Malakai were to leave, maybe it opens it up for, you know, for Brody to do more on his own, which I think would be great for Brody.
Yeah, I would like to see more for Brody, and even Buddy Matthews. Like he can stand out as a singles guy as well. You know,
he signed. Didn't he sign fairly recently, like an extension, like a year or so ago? Because there was rumors of him like wanting to maybe go back to WWE. I want to say, and then like but then I think they locked him down.
I could be wrong. Maybe.
Yeah,
this is a good point by Big Man Dogs. I feel like Tony might extend if he sees the IWC hyping up, leaving. So maybe it's better to tone it down, like possibly. But it feels like what happened last night, unless Malakai kind of did that himself, like was Tony doing the send off. And so it's the call may have already been made of, hey, he's leaving. This is the end. And even if, you know, he's leaving, this is the end of things. And so that's that. He's just going to be gone. And I don't think Tony's going to like go back on that if that's already been the call. And look, if the option years are there and Tony decides, hey, I'm going to pick up these option years. All right. You just got to deal with it. Like that's what the contract says. Hopefully they can continue to work together and Malakai puts what he can on television, does his best work, and Tony gives them fine stuff to work with and they go from there. But I'm not going to begrudge Tony for picking up option years if that's what's in the contract.
For sure. That's business. I can't be upset with that either. I remember didn't Aleister Black at the time, didn't him and Adam Cole wrestle each other in NXT also? I feel like I remember seeing that match. So yeah.
Our product is what it is. We're going straight up the middle.
Big happenings at New Japan Power Struggle on Monday morning. Let's start with Ricochet kind of coming back to New Japan. He went after Zack Sabre Jr. and he's going to face Zack Sabre Jr. at AEW New Japan Wrestle Dynasty on January 5th. It'll be for the IWGP World Heavyweight title if Zack defeats Shota Umino at Wrestle Kingdom. So what'd you make of Ricochet coming back to New Japan?
I mean, he was always a big deal over there. Over there in New Japan. I mean, I can't really say I'm surprised. I mean, I wasn't like expecting to see him, but like I wasn't surprised. You know what I mean? Like it makes sense that he would want to be a part of New Japan, that New Japan would want him. I guess I was more surprised that like he's going straight into a world title match with ZSJ, but it's not like he doesn't deserve it. Obviously, I mean, he's Ricochet. He's one of the most recognizable wrestlers out there. He's really hot right now as far as like, you know, being new to AEW and what he's doing in AEW right now and the stuff with Takeshita and, you know, the stuff with Ospreay and the potential of more Ospreay matches and stuff going forward and whatnot. So like there's a lot of really good stuff on the horizon for Ricochet. Like I don't expect ZSJ to lose to Ricochet. Like I don't expect him to lose to Shota either. But so I do expect ZSJ to ultimately like continue to be the champion. But it'll be an interesting match. I can't remember. I'm sure the two have had to wrestle each other in the past. I mean, they've both been around for so long, but nothing really stands out as like anything I remember between those two. So that'll be fun to watch. I mean, because they have two completely different styles of wrestling. ZSJ is unlike anybody else with his mat-based work and everything, and all his chain wrestling and everything that he can do with his submission holds. And Ricochet is, you know, obviously can do a bit of everything, but mainly thrives in like the innovative, high flying style and stuff. But I think it's been a conscious decision on his end too, to like tone it down a little bit on AEW. Not like, I think like the pay-per-views he'll always show out and whip out, the big flashy moves that like people are expecting, but he hasn't been doing a lot of 630s and stuff like that, like on Dynamite, which I think it's smart. Like you don't need to do that every single match. So I feel like Ricochet has kind of made a conscious decision of wrestling more almost like a quote unquote heavyweight, kind of style. Even it's hard to say, right? Because the styles evolve, but you all know what I mean when I say this stuff. I don't, but he doesn't have to do all the crazy high fly, super risky stuff every single time he's out there anymore, to be over. And in New Japan, I expect that he'll probably do a lot of that stuff, but it'd be even cooler to see because it's going to be in contrast to ZSJ, who's the complete opposite. So I'm expecting there to be some real innovation in this too, like reversals that we've never seen before. Maybe submission transitions and stuff we've never really seen before. Like I expect the two of them to put their heads together and come up with something that's really good between the two. So like I'm looking forward to a match between Ricochet and ZSJ.
It should be a really good match, and I'm very curious because Zack Sabre is obviously a guy who's gonna be technical and try to ground Ricochet. And yeah, with Ricochet's new style, I don't think it's changed that much, but he did an interview with Chris Van Vliet, and he's kind of got that new finisher, which is similar to Ospreay's Hidden Blade, kind of the running clothesline that he does when the guys kneel down. He even mentions it's kind of like a nod to Ospreay, but also like I'm going to show him that I can kind of do one better here. Like we saw Ospreay do the same thing when he kind of moved up to the heavyweight division. He started doing less of the high flying athletic stuff and started to be a little bit more striking based. Ricochet, sort of the same thing. And look, that's just going to happen as you get older. He said he's 36, not 26 anymore. You got to change up your style when it comes to this stuff. I was surprised to see him because he wrestled on Wednesday's Dynamite, so you would not think he would be in Japan on Monday. But he got back in time, obviously. But that was a real surprising moment when he was there at Power Struggle. That felt immediately like a bigger match than ZSJ and Shota, which the crowd didn't really seem to care for. And that's going to headline Wrestle Kingdom as of right now. And I'm very interested to see how that goes over because the crowd was way more into Ricochet returning than they were Shota coming out there and challenging Zack Sabre.
Yeah, I agree with you about everything you just said. I'm definitely more looking forward to it. I think the fan base is as well. It's not like I'm a Shota hater or anything like that, but New Japan's in a weird spot, right? We've talked about it before. They're in this position where they're trying to fill the spots of guys who carried that company for a long time. They're trying to fill the shoes of Okada leaving and Ospreay leaving and Nakamura leaving years ago and Okada leaving. I might have mentioned him already. And Tanahashi retiring. And it's like Naito's getting old. It's like they got to have new stars. So.
And I mentioned this elsewhere, but this feels like it's going to be almost like a transitional Wrestle Kingdom for them. Like Shota, Ren Narita, Yota Tsuji, these are the kind of the guys that have been tabbed as being up next. Shota's going to headline. Yota Tsuji is facing David Finlay for the global championship, which is basically their secondary title at this point. I don't know what Ren Narita is going to do. But these are their kind of three guys, and we'll see if they make these guys or not. I do think obviously Shota and Yota Tsuji, they're putting in big spots. And I don't know what Ren is going to end up doing. I don't know if they're fully ready for it, but at some point you got to make these guys, and at some point you got to go with these guys and create these new stars. And it feels like this Wrestle Kingdom, they're going to go for it. And maybe it doesn't work now. Maybe the fans aren't super sold going into the event, but coming out of the event, obviously the idea is, hey, these are our guys. They're going to lead the next decade of this company. And we could look back on this Wrestle Kingdom. It's like, hey, this is where it all started for them. And look what happened. Or we could look back and it's like, this is what they tried to do. It failed and they screwed up.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be. There probably won't be like anything in the middle of that. You know what I mean? Like it's either going to be a big success and like they're good going forward with their new group, or it's a massive failure and they're going to have to pivot to different people. But I have faith in the people you mentioned. It's not like I dislike that. Just full transparency. I'm like a lot of other fans, and I've said it 1,000 times, because of all the indie wrestling that I watch, I only have so much time in the week to watch wrestling, and I watch what I can for the stuff that I cover. So am only paying attention to like the big New Japan shows. But I know someone like SP3, for instance, is like watching everything. So like he'd have like a better gauge than like I would, for instance, as far as like who's up next and who's working and who isn't. But these are all people who have been doing work for quite a long time in New Japan. So I'm glad, they need to find new stars. So I'm glad they're trying some new people.
And the other topic also comes from New Japan. Kenny Omega, he was at Power Struggle. He called Japan his home. He said Japan's still the home of the best wrestling, and he basically said if all things go well, he's going to be wrestling January 5th at Wrestle Dynasty. He said he wanted to face one of the up and coming people from New Japan. He didn't want to go in there against people he'd already been in there with. They set up kind of an angle with him and Gabe Kidd. They got into an altercation backstage, so it looks like it could be Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Dynasty. A lot has been made about Kenny making his in-ring return in Japan. Well, it's a joint event between AEW and New Japan, but the show is in Japan. What'd you make of Kenny come and his return and his speech and potentially wrestling at a New Japan AEW show in Japan?
I probably feel similar to most people. I'm guessing. Excuse me. That it seems kind of weird, right? Like, I'm not saying that it's weird from the sense where I think like Kenny's like leaving AEW or something like that. Obviously, they have the working relationship and it's a joint show, but it feels like they're making a bigger deal or like hyping him doing this more than like what we've seen him as far as like an AEW return, like the actual AEW show, like on Dynamite and stuff. So that was a little strange. It kind of feels like he's returning to New Japan rather than AEW. It's just kind of like the vibe, right? And him calling New Japan his home. And sorry, did he call New Japan his home or Japan his home?
He called Japan his home.
Okay, because there is a pretty huge difference between those two things. So like, he lived in Japan for a very long time. He speaks Japanese and he's a big, very into their culture and stuff. So that makes sense. Him saying Japan is his home. Had he said New Japan is my home, then people would have been like, huh? What do you mean?
I did say New Japan was still the home of the best wrestling.
Which that is strange. That is strange to say that, I feel like. I don't know why. I mean, but it's not like New Japan. I'd feel a different type of way about this if New Japan and AEW didn't have the relationship that they had. You know what I mean? Like, because at the end of the day, this still is benefiting AEW, but it is kind of a weird look for like, because I mean, AEW's tagline is literally "We're the best wrestle." It's like you just went and said that New Japan's were the best wrestle. That's kind of weird. And you're an AEW EVP, and we haven't seen you wrestle in a long time. We expect you to wrestle on AEW TV, but you're over in Japan. So, I mean, I think it's strange. I think the whole thing is a little strange, but I'm not going to say that I'm like against the idea of Kenny Omega wrestling for New Japan and having some big matches over there and stuff again. I mean, he's one of the biggest, non-Japanese stars that the company has ever had. I mean, arguably the biggest. I mean, it'd really be between like him, AJ. AJ's run was pretty short though in comparison, but you had like him, Jay White had a good run, but I honestly can't think of any other Gaijin wrestler that you could. It's got to be Kenny. I think it's been the best in the history of that company because he was there for so long and all the 7-star matches and world titles and everything that he did over there. So I mean, I understand why he has really strong ties to New Japan. He would want to help the company and say good things about the company, but at the same time, you're an AEW EVP, and like we're expecting to see you on AEW TV when you come back.
I understand why people have sort of the disconnect of, hey, why aren't you making your big in-ring return on an AEW show? Like, I know this is an AEW show. I know this is an AEW New Japan. It's a joint It's a joint show. I get that. But he's not facing, at least what they're setting up, he's not facing an AEW talent. He's facing a New Japan talent. They are building a separate story between Kenny and Gabe Kidd than they were building on television, which was Kenny and the Elite. Because that's who attacked him in May. That's who put him on the shelf. They even did the birthday thing like a month ago, less than that, where they dumped the organs on the birthday cake. The Elite did. Now, I know the Elite have gone home and AEW's too chaotic and everything, but that was something they were building on AEW television. And now they're building something completely different on New Japan. And it seems like he's going to wrestle Gabe Kidd. I understand why people would be like, why isn't Kenny's big return match in an AEW on an AEW televised event, a show that the majority of the AEW American audience can watch? Because this show is going to take place at 2 a.m. in the morning on Thursday. Maybe it's a Sunday, January 5th. It might be a Sunday or Saturday morning, something like that. But like that's when it's going to take place. It's not going to be an AEW centralized show on an AEW pay-per-view or on an AEW weekly television show or anything like that. It's going to be more for the Japanese audience who is going to be watching that live. I'm sure plenty of fans will stay up to watch Kenny Omega's return, though. I have no doubt about that. My thing is, I'm going to assume this is what Kenny Omega wants. I'm going to assume Kenny Omega can call his own shot on how he wants to return, where he wants to return, who he wants to face. He's earned that right. He has enough cachet with the audience and both promotions to where he's earned the right to do that. After everything he's been through with his health, not only this past year, but really since AEW was started with everything, because he's missed a big chunks of time throughout his AEW career with various health issues. And he was banged up during his, belt collector run. He's talked about that, how like injured he was during that run. After everything he's been through with his health, I'm going to, whatever Kenny wants to do. He's 40 now. I don't know how much time he has left. I don't know if he knows how much time he has left. So if this is what he wants to do, more power to him. I think everyone should just respect that at this point. Like, yeah, just let him do what he wants to do. I get, this is not a great look for AEW. His return match in AEW is still going to be big. I don't think AEW fans are going to be like, wow, AEW really lost out on this. Kenny's return match isn't even in the company. It isn't even on one of their big shows. It's on a joint show in Japan, to where, again, most of the AEW fans might not have access or might not stay up to watch live. I don't think it's going to hurt the company that much. I think the fans who get it and are Kenny Omega fans, which is the majority of AEW fans, are probably just going to be like, yeah, this is no problem with this. I think the people who are against it are probably just going to be against a lot of stuff that AEW does and don't actually care about the interest of what AEW is doing and are just kind of looking for something to be down on.
Yep, I think that's the case when it comes to a lot of stuff with wrestling fans complaining. I've talked about that before as well, plenty. And the other side of this, I totally agree. Like, he's getting up there in age. He's been banged up for a really long time physically. He's accomplished so much in his career. And at the end of the day, diverticulitis is no joke, obviously. And he's probably, I'm not in his head, obviously, but I would imagine he's probably gone through some dark times sitting around recovering and having to deal with this, the diverticulitis is real. It literally almost killed Brock Lesnar when he was in the UFC. It's like, this is not anything to be joking about, like, having to deal with this. And I'd imagine that probably plays a factor in it too, where he's like, I don't know how much time I've got in wrestling. Like, because that kind of thing is so diverticulitis just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, it's not like you saw this coming, I'd imagine. So it's just like all of a sudden, like, it probably just gives you a different perspective on stuff, right? It's just like it could all end at any moment. And like, if what's going to make Kenny Omega happy and bring him more peace, like in his life and everything, is like he decided I need to get back to New Japan. This is going to make me feel better. I got to do this. This is what I want to do. I have no problem at all with that. So good on him. If this is what he wants to do, I'd imagine just like you do. I'd imagine he has a lot of say in how this is going down for himself. And if this is what he wants to do, I got no problem at all with it. He deserves to do what he wants. He has absolutely earned the right to do what he wants to do at this point for sure.
Yeah, that's where I'm at on it. Look, if he wants to do something with Gabe Kidd, more power to him. Gabe Kidd is a guy who I think can be a top guy for New Japan. I think he already does a lot of media for them. His issue is going to be he's got to tone down the swearing, especially in America, because it's not going to fly quite as much, especially on like a national television deal. Although AEW, they swear all the time anyway. But, if you're on a morning show, which he's done talk shows and stuff, you obviously can't swear. But he's very good when it comes to media, and he's very good at getting people talking. And, I think if that's what Kenny wants to do, more power to him.
Yeah, I'm with you. Good to have Kenny back.
No, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm just saying it was good. I'm just saying it's good to have Kenny back. Just in general, it's good to have him back.
Yeah, look, I think AEW has missed him. I look forward to when he does get back in the ring and when he is back on television on a weekly basis, because I think there's a lot that he can do, whatever he wants to do, but there's a lot of story to tell with Kenny. And he's always been fantastic in that aspect, in the ring and just as a weekly television guy. He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a big motherfucking shout out.
Hunter Drake won the New South Pro Wrestling Championship. I don't think the match is up on IWTV yet, but it should be in the next few days, maybe weeks. But I know, Jensen, you wanted to talk about Hunter Drake winning the title.
Yes. 90 Spotlight is Hunter Drake becoming the New South Pro Wrestling Champion once again. To my knowledge, it has not aired yet on IWTV either. But when it does, please use code Fight Talk over there to watch the shows. Let the platform know that I sent you over there. What winds up happening though is I did get the full results sent over to me, and I went over them on the Weekender. So if you want the full New South results for the Saga Continues, that's over on the Weekender on Fightful Select. So check that out. This past episode, I talk all about the show from start to finish, from the results that I was given. But what I wanted to talk about today real quick before I got to clock in for the shoot job is Tyler Franks came into the show as the New South Heavyweight Champion. He had won the title a little while back. It's a little hard to keep up with New South, unfortunately, because they pre-tape so much of their stuff and then put it out afterwards. So you kind of got to keep up. Like you see something happen on social media, but then you got to wait a little bit to actually see it on IWTV or wherever. But Tyler Franks won the title a while back. And for people who don't know, Tyler Franks and Hunter Drake, when I discovered both of them years back, they were a tag team called the Talladega Nights. And they're still both young guys, but they were really young guys at the time, like teenage guys. And they were the most over tag team in New South, homegrown, super over white meat babyface tag team. And they were really, really beloved by the New South crowd as the Talladega Nights. And when the team split up, both guys kind of went on different journeys. Hunter Drake pretty much immediately became a main event guy there and became the New South champion and had this run with Braden Toon and then against Braden Toon. And Hunter Drake really got positioned as the guy out of that tag team who, became the star right away. And Tyler had to do more of the go from the ground up again. The tag team split and he had to really work his way up the card and become the champion and really earned it as well. So it was a bummer because Tyler Franks wound up having to vacate the championship on this show. And he says he's going to try to recapture the championship when he returns. But nonetheless, he had to vacate the championship. So there was a new champion crowned in the main event. And it was a fatal four-way match where Hunter Drake, who had just recently returned to New South, who I was just talking about, his former tag team partner, he winds up winning the fatal four-way over Richard Holiday, Donnie Primetime, and Big Dave. So Hunter Drake is once again the New South Pro Wrestling Champion. Hunter Drake is a fantastic talent, a guy that we've had on this show as well for an interview a while back. And it's good to see him as the New South champion. I'm bummed out for Franks that he had to vacate, but Hunter Drake is fantastic. So he'll carry that championship. And then whenever Tyler's ready to come back, I would imagine they'll go with a Talladega Nights feud. So it'll be Hunter Drake defending the championship against Tyler Franks, and that's the championship that Franks never lost. And there's probably a big redemption storyline in that too, with Tyler Franks probably eventually taking down Hunter Drake and winning the championship back from him, and going on to have a longer run as a babyface champion that got cut short due to him having to vacate to injury. So yeah, congratulations to new South champion Hunter Drake, and speedy recovery to, I don't know if he still goes by the moniker, but he used to be called All Beef Tyler Franks. I don't know if he still uses that or not, but speedy recovery to Tyler Franks.
There you go. Jensen, let everybody know. I know you got to run. Let everybody know where they can find you at.
Yes, I got to clock in for the shoot job. I'm going to be running over to my other room and hitting a bunch of buttons on my keyboard as fast as I can. I appreciate seeing you, Jeremy, seeing the chat. You can follow me on X at @FightTalk_. Use code FightTalk on IndependentWrestling.tv and listen to the Spotlight. It's every Sunday or Monday, depending on the schedule of the independent shows that I cover. So look out for it on either Sunday, usually Sunday afternoon or evening, sometimes on Monday when I get off work, but never later than Monday. So yeah, check that out. Support us over on Fightful Select. And I hope you guys enjoy this interview you're about to hear with Gerard Bonner and Brandon Benefield. Y'all have a good Thursday.
There you go. Thank you as always, Jensen. All right, guys, let's get into it. It is in the creator spotlight from Southern Honor Pro Wrestling Podcast. You might have heard of him if you've watched Fodder Boy, Psycho Boy Fodder. I don't know why I call him Fodder Boy. If you've watched Psycho Boy Fodder matches on YouTube, it is Gerard Bonner and Brandon Benson. Here we go. Let me pull up the video. All right. Maybe. All right, here we go. Gerard and Brandon in the creator spotlight.
Welcome to the Creator Spotlight here on the Spotlight on Fightful. I am Stephen Jensen, joined as always by Jeremy Lambert. And our guests today are two of my favorite guys in the world of wrestling, two of the greatest commentators in the game right now. We got Gerard Bonner and Brandon Benefield in the house. Both of you guys, we've talked about you on the show many times. We've had guests on the show that have talked about y'all. It's good to finally have you here for an interview. How are both y'all doing today?
Doing great on this end. It is an honor to be here with you guys for sure. And I get to do something with Brandon. That's always fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because we see each other every week doing a similar podcast like this. So it's really not out of the norm for us, but it's great to see you guys. And thanks so much for having us for sure.
Absolutely. Before we even get rolling, please tell everybody about your podcast.
Well, it's the SHW podcast, and it's obviously focuses on Southern Honor Wrestling, which is where we first joined up back in 2019. Mm-hmm. And the first time we started commentating together. And of course, we've done it in other spaces as well since that time. But SHW Pod, at SHW Pod on all the socials is where you can follow us for that. And we're also joined by our ring announcer, the great Diana Michelle. She joins us on that show as well as a third co-host. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. We do it every week.
Yeah.
Okay, real quickly, before Jensen's going to ask the first question here. I'm already feeling a little. Gerard comes in here and the voice, my God. You have such a great voice. I apologize. I'm just going to put you over here, but wow. The voice immediately when you went into the podcast mode, we were chit-chatting off air, full disclosure, but he goes into podcast mode. I'm like, damn, this guy's super professional. Like, you're putting us all to shame.
No, you guys are very kind. I appreciate that. I have been honored to do radio for a long time and hopping into this space. So this is just kind of what I do. So, but I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
Now you guys get to see how lucky I am getting to work with us every single week.
Well, so we were talking about it before we started rolling and recording here, but as everyone can see here, as y'all watch it, as you watch this interview. Look at the setups. I mean, it's rare. It's rare we get guys in here. I mean, this is professional quality with the microphones, the professional cameras. We got backdrops with cool stuff in the background. Y'all both got the shelves with title belts, trophies. So I mean, this is very cool. This is very cool. And okay, so you mentioned Southern Honor, and I know you guys from there as well. I've seen you guys in person at other shows as well. We'll talk about some of those other companies too. But how did you guys actually get started with Southern Honor, and like give me some of your first experiences as far as like working together as a team?
Gotcha. Well, GB, you want me to kind of start where I started from, and then we'll catch up?
Yeah, I mean, since you kind of the first man in, so
okay, yeah. So October of 2018, it was Southern Honor Wrestling's very first show. My sister works up in Canton where the show is based out of. And so she saw a flyer around town. This show's coming up. I'm down in Kennesaw, so I'm just south of there. And she said, hey, there's this new wrestling promotion. We should check it out. So that's October of 2018. At the time, I was doing another podcast with some work buddies. It was of course, we all have wrestling podcasts, right? So it was a wrestling podcast. And somebody backstage at Southern Honor saw or heard my podcast and said, hey, do you want to do commentary at the first SHW show? And I had no experience, nothing like that. And I had already bought tickets to go to the show just to watch as a fan. And I was like, well, yeah, sure. And, I've never done it before, but why not? And I remember doing it that very first night. And I'll be the first to admit, the first year, I'll even say, it was rough because I didn't know what I was doing. But I remember that very first show afterwards just going, that was the most fun I've ever had, just ever. It was just great. And I've been a wrestling fan forever, right? And so to actually get involved and actually kind of be a part of it was super cool. And then I kind of bounced around with a couple of different commentary partners for that first year. And then it was December of 2019. Well, actually, GB, I'll let you kind of pick up because it was a couple months before that where we actually met because GB was just coming to the shows as a fan as well. And I'll let him take it from there.
Yeah, for sure. I found out about Southern Honor thanks to DDPY, DDP Yoga, of course. Shout out to my wife who had gotten me a kind of a Groupon pass for my birthday to go to DDPY. So I go there, and that's where I start seeing these flyers for Southern Honor. And so I finally was able to go to the September 2019 show. And when I went, I didn't really know anybody there, but was hooked immediately. Loved the show. Brought a friend of mine back for the October show, which was the 1-year anniversary show. And that's where I first met Brandon. He was doing commentary. Fast forward to the November show, and I noticed that he was in the booth by himself. I am not, in the interest of full disclosure, I am not a forward person at all. I'm the kind of type who just, if it's supposed to happen, it'll come to me or whatever. But in that moment, it was just like, let me just ask him, and so I said to him, I said, hey, listen, where's your partner at? And he was like, he couldn't be here. And I said, well, if you ever need anybody to do commentary with you, I'd be more than happy to do it. And so he was like, okay, great. And I kind of thought it was the convention. Yeah, sure, that type of thing. And so I bought my tickets for the next show. And the December show, that particular day, for whatever reason, was the one day that I wasn't on the socials. Still don't know why. But I got to the show. And I got there about 30 minutes before, and Dylan met me at the door, and he's like, we've been trying to get a hold of you all day. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, do you want to call the show? And I said, yes. And after I said yes, I was like, what did I just say yes to? Like, do I remember any of the stuff that happened? I'm not prepared, like none of this type of stuff. And so then they walked me in. Of course, the great Gary Lamb meets me there at the seat in 15 minutes before the show. And he's like, hey, if you do a great job, you've got the gig, so don't suck. Famous last words, right? And so we get into the first match, and amid all the things I've done in my life, it's the most natural thing I've ever done. And so I remember looking over at Brandon after the first match, and he looks at me, he's like, I think we got something. And we've been off to the races since then.
Yeah, we both felt natural. Like I said, after that first, or like he said, after that first match, I was like, wow, that felt really good. And I'd had a couple of previous partners before that, and then I'd done the previous show by myself. And by the way, I don't know if you've ever tried to do a show by yourself. It's
not easy.
It's doable, but it's not easy. It's like it's so much better, especially having GB there, because you got to have that person to bounce off of. And GB is just such a natural. And it's so funny because he told me that story about how, well, yeah, when I told you that, I'd be interested, and you just kind of went, yeah, okay. No, like I honestly was like, okay. And so he had sent me, because I think he had already sent me his podcast the month before, and I listened to that, and I was like, oh, this guy's sharp, and I jokingly now call him, it reminds me of Mike Tenay. I call him the professor because he's just so sharp, and he's got all the history and all the back knowledge and everything. And so it's just so good. And it's not often that you just meet somebody that you click with. And I don't know if you guys have experienced that before in your line of work or in your life at all, but like something happened with Gerard, and the same thing with our ring announcer, Diana. Like we just all met, and now we're all thick as thieves. And, we've been running, 5 years now since 2019.
5 years.
So it's pretty wild.
Man, that's wild. So since 2015, And I know you mentioned, it isn't easy to do shows on your own. I have not even come close to attempting that. As a matter of fact, I've only called, I think, 2 or 3 matches total in my life, and they were both with you guys, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
So thank you. I wanted to tell you guys, I've said this on the show before, but for me, doing commentary was more of like just like a bucket list thing. It was something I always thought would be just really cool to just try. And I was fortunate enough through CDW, Championship District Wrestling, and Jack Jameson, who's now known, nationwide on AEW TV and Ring of Honor and everything.
Oh yeah.
He was the brains behind that operation, and he gave me the opportunity. He was like, hey man, there's a few matches I'd like you to jump on commentary. And I was really nervous. Full disclosure, I was like, really? Like, you want me to do that? Like, are you sure? I've never done this. I've told him like 1,000 times, like, I've never done this before. Like,
Yeah.
I really don't know what I'm doing. I've just been watching wrestling my whole life, and I talk about it on these podcasts.
Right.
But the second that I met you guys, I felt comfortable. I was like, listen, I was like, even if I totally suck, it's going to be really obvious that I suck compared to these guys, but they're going to carry this thing to where, like, this is going to be good either way because these guys are great. And I just want to thank you guys for making me you were very, very welcoming, especially to somebody that I could tell that you guys have put a lot of work in this, that you have teamed for a long time, and that this is like a real deal thing for you guys. For someone like me to come in with no experience and just like trying to figure it out, you guys really made me feel comfortable, and I really appreciate that. And it's something that I really, really value, because I don't plan on doing commentary like in the future, but like the memory of me doing that is always going to be linked to you guys.
Wow. Thank you. Appreciate
that. That's awesome. And can I just tell you, thank you for that particular day, because that was the one and only time this has ever happened to me since I've been doing commentary. And at this point, it's been just over 6 years, but my voice was completely shot for that show. And I was in a panic because it was one of those weird, like, I don't know if it's laryngitis or whatever, but I felt fine physically, but I couldn't talk like above a whisper. Like I was freaking out because I was like, we've got a show today. What do I do? And I was telling GB, like, you're going to have to carry the load here. And then we found out when we got there that Stephen, you were going to be joining us. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. So you saved my butt that day as well. And then between you doing a couple matches, I think Diamond Sheik and maybe Jameson also did a match or two here and there. And we were able to get through the whole show. But man, it was a rough one for me. Just because I couldn't talk and I was in panic mode, but luckily you were there to save us. So I appreciate you that day.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And so speaking of, CDW and obviously coming together at Southern Honor, how did things kind of continue to grow for the two of y'all as a team? Because you are working in like multiple places. So how did that kind of go down? Was like as far as you in becoming a part of other companies, not just Southern Honor.
GB, you want to jump on it, or you want me to jump on the Nightmare Factory stuff?
I think that's where it started. So you can definitely talk about that.
Well, okay. So coincidentally, this movie that I'm about to allude to just came out on streaming this past week. It's a movie that's got put out by Glacier, Ray Lloyd, Ernest the Cat Miller. It's called Unbreakable Bunch, and a bunch of old school guys are in it. Haku's in it. DDP makes an appearance. Anyway, so this movie has been in the works since 2020, early 2020, and the pandemic hit and it put everything on hold, and so it's been delayed and whatnot. But it finally is out, so you could check it out on streaming. It's Unbreakable Bunch. But I say all that to say this: back in like January of 2020, I followed Glacier on Facebook, right? And he had put out a post looking for extras for some wrestling scenes that they're shooting for this upcoming movie they're doing. They were filming it at the Nightmare Factory, which the original location was in Norcross, Georgia. So not, like 20, 30 minutes from all of us. And I just I just thought, you know what? I'm going to shoot him a message here and see what he thinks. And if he doesn't reply, no big deal. So I shot a message and I just said, hey, I know you're looking for extras for the crowd. Would you have any interest in having a commentary booth set up at ringside just to add to the, the ambience of the scene or whatever? And so, and if you want, we could even record commentary while we're there or whatever. And so he jumped back right away and was like, oh, I love this idea. This is great. Let's run it by the producers. And next thing you know, we're there setting up the commentary booth and all this. And so we're in the background of a lot of shots and whatnot. And then we even went back and they had Gerard and I cut commentary in post-production to add to some of the wrestling scenes throughout the movie, which is very cool. But when that happened, so we're talking January, February of 2020, I had said to Glacier at the time, to Ray at the time, I don't even know if it was officially Nightmare Factory yet. It was One Fall Power Factory, and QT Marshall and Ray Lloyd were the like main coaches there. Yeah. And then Cody came in and they merged and it became the Nightmare Factory. So around that time, I knew that One Fall Power Factory had been doing like little kind of pop-up shows here and there for their students, just basically like its own little indie promotion around Georgia. And so I told Ray, I don't know that they were actually filming those shows or anything like that, but I said, hey, if you ever are going to like get back to doing these shows and you're going to film them, I got a commentary partner at Southern Honor. Now I know that Ray knows Dylan Freimeyer, who we're talking about, who basically created Southern Honor, and they know each other. So I know we have all these little connections to each other. And Ray goes, well, that's not really up to me as far as the shows go, but I'll put you in contact with QT Marshall. And, he's basically running the school. And then the pandemic hit like a month later, and then everything shut down. So they weren't running any shows. At that point, Cody was there, I guess. And so it was Nightmare Factory. But then at that point, Ray just said, stay in touch. So literally, and I don't like to be that guy typically, but also I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to miss an opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to not say anything and then like, oh, we could have been doing something and I just didn't speak up. So like every 2 months, I would just send a message to QT and Ray and be like, hey guys, just touch a base. I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, but if you guys ever get around to running shows, we're still here. I was, Gerard and I are ready to help out wherever we can. And then it got all the way to December of 2020. And just randomly QT's like, hey, are you guys doing anything on December, whatever the date was, December 6th or something like that. And, I'm texting Gerard, hey, they need us. I don't know what this is, but they need us for something. And I think at that point, GB, was that just kind of like was it even like a pilot taping or something? It wasn't actually like a show.
They were putting some ideas together for what they wanted a show to be. And so we started doing work with that. And then eventually what started happening was the student showcases for the Nightmare Factory. And that first class, of course, had like Carly Bravo, Dean Alexander, and a number of people. And so we were just there and we continued to be, part of what the Nightmare Factory was doing. And so that moment really led into us being connected to the Nightmare Factory, being used by the Nightmare Factory for commentary. And then as the different wrestlers who were working in the Nightmare Factory started launching their own promotions and doing things, they remembered that and they connected with us. And then the word just kind of started spreading.
And that would include CDW, Jameson being a student, and Baron Black, Battle Slam. There's that's right. Connections there. Yeah. Jeremy, let me get you get some questions, and I can go all day back and forth. But I know I don't want you just sitting there.
I had first a little bit of praise for you, Brandon, doing a podcast solo. Jensen does a podcast solo. Like just doing that solo is difficult in and of itself. So I can imagine like actually doing commentary solo. So it's credit to you on that one.
Well,
now,
thank you.
I might have to pop Jensen off here, so he can't see any of this.
Uh-oh.
When they tell you, hey, this podcaster guy, he's gonna come in here and do commentary with you. Like, what are your real thoughts about it? What are you truly thinking when you're told a podcast? What were you really thinking, Brandon?
Well, I'll tell you what. Any other day, I might have been like, oh, this is interesting. Like, who is this guy? Whatever. But that particular day, and I already said it earlier, because of my situation, I was just glad somebody else was there for GB to bounce off of, because then I was like, I don't have to leave him high and dry running solo now. But you are right. Like any other time, I think, there is a little bit of concern. Like, oh, wait, who is this guy? Like, because I don't even know if Jameson had said anything to us before the show. I think we just got there and he said, hey, by the way, this guy's going to join you. And but I will tell you, having met Stephen right before the show, I mean, we clicked right away. Like, obviously he's a great guy and we just, hit it off right away. So I wasn't worried about it, but I see your point, like coming into it going, who is this guy? But GB, I don't know. What were your thoughts?
Yeah,
GB?
you know what's funny? One of the things that has happened to us over the course of us working together is we will find out randomly about a third person joining us. And we've had it happen on a number of occasions where whoever the third person is, on one hand, they could be a wrestler or so who's never done commentary, or they're just somebody who, the promoter found interest in and said, hey, we're going to give them an opportunity. And so, my thought has always been somebody gave me an opportunity, right? So I want to always be open to give whomever an opportunity. You never know what it turns into. And the thing I'm always confident in is the chemistry that Brandon and I have is one where we're going to make room for whomever. And if for whatever reason that person can't cut it, we can still do enough stuff to make it work. So thankfully, you know, Stephen was great to work with, as has been several of the other people that we've done commentary with.
All right. Well, he could hear all of that. So.
Yeah, I have access to jump back in if I want to, but I wanted to get some. No, I appreciate you guys.
For sure, that's funny.
Trying to do a gotcha moment.
Right. Boom.
Well, the bit's way better if like nobody knows that I can hear and see that if they did wind up going off on me. So,
based on Brandon's answer, like before everything, and look, I know Jensen. I know him personally. Done this show with him for almost 3 years. Almost 3 years. Yeah. Wow. So we know each other fairly well. I didn't think you guys were gonna say anything. It's funnier if I just pop him off. It's like, tell me the real dirt here. Let me know what you really think about him. My other kind of comment was, so immediately when you talked about this movie, Brandon, I knew what you were talking about because I just saw this trailer a couple weeks ago when they started promoting. I was like, this seems like the wildest movie of all time. I love wrestler movies anyway because you never know what you're gonna get. And this cast of characters with Glacier and Haku and the Yeti, I'm like, this is what I want to see right here. Yeah, Ernest Miller,
Spotlight alum. He's been on the show. We love us some Ernest Miller. Absolutely.
I'm like, this is great right here. I can't wait to see this. Have you guys seen like a rough cut or a draft of this?
It's out. I watched it over the weekend. Okay. Yeah. It's so. And I don't know how it was described to you, or if it was at all, if you just saw the trailer.
I just saw the trailer. I just saw the trailer in the description.
Are you familiar with the Roddy Piper classic, They Live?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So take that and then take like an old Western like Magnificent Seven and kind of merge all that together. And you know all the big names that are in it, as you've already mentioned, as we talked about. I mean, and so it's got that 80s B movie kind of cheese sci-fi, you know, but it's great. And that's kind of the point of it anyway. Like you go into it kind of expecting it to be that. And it was cool. And the thing is, I only knew about our parts, you know, because obviously we taped them and everything. And so I was looking for those. But then also as I'm watching it, I'm seeing all these other, you know, we're very familiar with all the wrestlers around the Georgia indie scene. And so there's all these little people that are extras, you know, in the crowd, like faces you recognize, like, hey, there's Danny Jordan, there's David Ali, there's the Renegades, there's, you know, all these different people, you know, if you're a Georgia indie fan. And then, of course, the big names, like we talked about. And even there's like some other cameos that you aren't expecting that you're like, hey, I know who that is. And I didn't know he was in this. And so, but it was very cool. And so getting to hear, you know, I'm geeking out watching it at home when I hear our part come up and I'm like, hey, that's all right. That's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming out soon. I didn't realize it was already out now. So yes, I gotta make time to actually.
They released it in late 2023 up north in a handful of theaters. Okay. And then I'd been asking Ray, like, when's it going to be like nationwide or when it's on streaming? And they've been working on it for a long time to get it to where it is now. And so November 1st, so just like last week was last Friday, it finally came out on all streaming. So like, Apple TV or, you know, Prime,
Amazon
Video.
Prime, Vimeo, YouTube, all of those spaces. Yeah.
So you can buy or rent and it's there. The Unbreakable Bunch.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like the rough draft of that, wasn't it? It was called like Aliens versus Wrestlers or it was Zombies versus Wrestlers.
Initially, it was called The Replaceables. Was the original name. And I don't know where or why, but along the way somewhere it changed to The Unbreakable Bunch.
Okay. Yeah. I saw the tagline for one of it was like Zombies versus Wrestlers. And I'm like,
Aliens versus Wrestlers. Yeah, that's what the poster said. Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
I think even Kat says a line in the trailer where he's like, Aliens versus Wrestlers. That's like a monster movie. It's great, man. It's what you expect going into it. When I watched it, I was like, okay, that's about what I was looking for. It's good.
Perfect.
I'm looking forward to this. Go ahead, Jensen.
Speaking of the Cat, he's got some sort of like roast coming up. Do you guys know about this? Are you involved in this at all?
I briefly told GB about this, and I didn't fill you in all the way, GB, because I just found out about what I'm doing last night. And so I had reached out. This is kind of a random funny story. I think I can tell it in a public forum. I don't see why not. So I follow Laughing Skull Lounge on Facebook, and that's the club where this show is going to be. as we record this, it's going to be tomorrow night at Laughing Skull Lounge. And I saw the poster, and it said Ringside Roast. And I'm looking at the graphic, and there's like 10 wrestlers. Some of them are like old school WCW guys. You got Buff Bagwell, you've got Sonny Ono, you've got a handful of guys, and then there's like 5 indie wrestlers. And I'm looking at them. I'm like, I've worked with all these guys on our shows, GB. It's like Big Trouble Ben Bishop, Diamond Sheik, Tennedy, Casey Rocker, a bunch of guys that we know either through Nightmare Factory or just one of our shows. And so I, much like I did with Glacier, I just sent an email and said, hey, would you have any need for a commentator or commentary team, a booth for this show? Because you can even look at the website, and what it looks like, it's going to be maybe a mix of like Wild and Out and one of these Comedy Central roasts. And so it's going to be like 10 wrestlers. They're going to go one-on-one, so paired off in 5 pairs, whatever. And so they're going to go one-on-one just roasting you, like a roast battle. And so I don't know how this is going to turn out. We'll see. But they got back to me, and they were like, well, it's last minute, and I don't know that we have any kind of place for like a commentary booth. And like what, I was just spitballing. I was like, I don't even know what it would be or what I would do or what we would do. And they got back to me yesterday, and they said, hey, maybe we could do like a backstage interview guy. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever you want to do. And so they hit me up yesterday and said, so I guess I'll be there at the show doing backstage interviews. Kind of like if they're just getting done with the match and they're coming backstage being interviewed by, Renee Paquette. Instead, they'll be coming off of their segment, the comedy segment, and I'll be backstage. Hey, how'd it go? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't really know what it's going to be until I get there and figure out kind of whatever they tell me they need me to do. So I'm looking forward to it. It should be wild. Diamond Sheik hit me up last night, and he was all excited about it. He's like, hey, Kat told me you were going to be doing this thing. So Kat's a producer for it, apparently, and I didn't even know that. So it was funny because then Kat hit me up like an hour after I sent that message. He's like, hey, the comedy club sent me your email. And I'm like, how'd you get my email? Like, what? And then I realized, oh, he's part of it. And so anyways, it's funny how it all came together. But
hey,
anyways.
You said Ben Bishop was going to be there?
He's on
yeah.
Okay. Tell him we said hello. He's a pro. We love Ben Bishop.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do at this show because it's a comedy show. And obviously, if you guys follow him on the socials, which I know you guys do, but anybody else out there needs to follow Big Trouble Ben Bishop because he's always posting funny videos and definitely got the personality to go along with the look and the size and the ability to be the next big thing, figuratively and literally. But,
yeah. There must have been some sort of there must have been a lot of work done on that show for the one we're talking about, the roast right now on Monday, because my brother is a boxing trainer here in Atlanta, so he shares a lot of studio space with the Cat around town. So my brother and the Cat actually know each other pretty well. It's just so random because my brother's not a wrestling fan, but he knew of the Cat because I watched the Cat growing up. So but now he's friends with the guy. And on Monday, my brother was like, hey, if we want to, the Cat said we can come out to this roast and it's on, but I was like, I gotta work. If I can get off work early, I'm going to try to make it. But it was so funny because I don't know if you guys know how active the Cat is still in the MMA, kind of training karate scene around town. But my brother will randomly send me these videos that I swear that I will not ever show anybody. I tell him to send them to me because he knows I won't show them to anyone. But every now and then I'll get a video. It's just the Cat's kicking everyone's ass in this gym. And it'll send me like a 30-second video of almost like a movie, one by one. These guys half his age coming at him, and the Cat just kicking him across the room, and it's just wow, it's the most wild, this guy's amazing. So
I love it.
And anything we can do to promote the Cat on this show, we will always do. So the Cat's good people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Another guy that talked about you, actually, a couple that talked about you guys on the show with us was Psycho Boy Potter and Angelina Love.
Yes.
When we had them on, they spoke glowingly of both of y'all, basically saying, the first time we heard these guys, we knew we wanted to do something that had to do with them. I believe they were on a show that you guys commentated, and they didn't know a whole lot about the show itself and the production of the show itself, but they heard the commentary and they were like, whoa, this commentary is top notch. Let's find out more about these guys. So what has been your experience with, because essentially what you guys do, and you guys might be able to explain it better, but essentially there's some matches that Psycho Love has done that either like they had no commentary for the match, or like the commentary, like audio wasn't good or something about the show, but you guys have been kind of entrusted and hired to do their personal match commentary. So if you can talk a little bit about that and your experience, working with them.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing experience. We met them, obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, but we met them at Championship District Wrestling. And that's where we first got to meet them and work with them. And I remember after one of those shows, Fodder coming to both of us, and he just spoke so highly about our work, which was a real honor. And so that turned into him literally contracting us to call varying matches of his. And it's been an amazing experience to be able to do. The beauty of technology is it allows us to get together, record the commentary. He does a great job of just kind of splicing it and putting it onto YouTube. It makes it sound as though we were there for whatever was going on. And he trusts us with us. And to me, that's one of the great joys of pro wrestling, is when people trust you to tell their stories. That speaks volumes. And so for him to contract us to do that and continue to do that, and we've called some matches with some pretty cool opponents of his, from Bully Ray to Too Cold Scorpio, and it's just kind of like, this is insane. But for him to trust us in that way, and then to get to watch his growth as well, it's an amazing experience. So shout out to Fodder and to Angelina Love.
I wanted to ask about how you guys do the commentary kind of in the post. So a couple questions. First off, do y'all do that together, or is that in two separate, I guess, studios?
We do it together, and I feel like it is, I mean, the technology's there to do it kind of like what we're doing right now, but when you do it over something like this, whether it's Zoom or whether it's StreamYard, whatever we're using, there's always going to be a weird delay,
the latency,
something like that. So because we're both local, local to each other, I guess, not necessarily local to Fodder. Fodder, most of his matches that he sends us, he's traveling the Indies up there in North Carolina, and then he'll send us his matches, and then we get together. We have some access to a couple of places, some studio space here and there, and we get together and we throw the headsets on just like we're at a show, and we'll watch it on the laptop and hit record and just go from there. We'll get like story notes, and we'll do our research ahead of time, depending on whoever his opponent is, kind of figure out the storyline and the background of whoever he's wrestling. But and it's cool, like GB said, it's kind of cool getting to kind of call his progress, because like in the RWA, what is it, GB? Oh no,
Revolution Authority.
Up there in North Carolina. So we watched his whole going after the title, and for months and months, and then finally winning the big title. And so we were like kind of calling everything along the way. So it's kind of neat to be able to do that from afar and still be a part of it. And then, like GB said, the way it gets edited and put together, if we didn't just tell everybody right now and pull the curtain back, then everybody would just assume we were there at ringside. So
you play it off well too. It usually starts off with like some technical difficulties with the previous commentary. We got you picked up right here with Brandon and GB. So I like how and those come across great on the YouTube channel, by the way. Like they really everything about it all comes off super high production. It makes everyone look really good. So sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, I was gonna ask Gerard, and it's for both of you, but I'll let you start, Gerard. When it comes to kind of calling it from the remote location compared to live, I just want to know the differences when it comes to that, and like I guess it's more of a vibes thing, and how you prepare for something like that compared to going there live. Because I always find that very interesting when like a WWE or an AEW, and they edited stuff in the post of like, how do they do that? What goes into that? So I'm very curious about that kind of stuff.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it does require a different skill set to kind of channel yourself to be in the moment when you're not physically there. One of the things, and I think both Brandon and I work in radio, and we do a lot of editing. And so one of the things that my ears quickly grab is the difference between when someone kind of punches in a video or punches in their own audio versus actually being there in the moment. So if they do an overdub for a commercial or something, you can hear the difference. And if you can hear the difference, it's like, okay, I know you're not in the moment. So we work really hard to make sure that we are in the moment and make it feel as though we're there. It took a little bit of work initially, because, we're used to calling things live and in the moment, having the excitement of the crowd around. But when you start quickly realizing, okay, this is the space we're in, all right, let's just kind of get ourselves there. And so we kind of, I think, mentally prepare before we get there, so we know what we got to do when we hop into it.
And Brandon, how about you? Like, what are the sort of the differences that go into it for you?
So let's see. I will say, like, if I have a preference, obviously I want to do it live. Yeah. And even starting out, kind of, and GB already touched on this, but when we first started doing the post commentary, it did take a little bit before we really got the hang of it, and really, because now I feel like we're at the point, and a lot of credit to Fodder for starting to use us. The more Fodder matches we did, the better we got at it. And yes. I feel like now we're at the point where, again, if we hadn't just pulled the curtain back, if somebody were to watch the matches, they wouldn't even know that we weren't there. Right. But I know I can hear it, and GB can hear it. Some of the earlier stuff we did, you'd hear it, and to me, it's obvious. Oh, we're not there. Like, we sound like we're not there, But I don't know that everybody else will pick that out. But we also, like he said, we both come from radio and edit audio all day, every day, and so to me, it's that stuff's obvious. But I get excited whenever Fodder hits us up. Hey, I've got a couple more matches to send you, because I know, now I look forward to doing it because it's a lot of fun, but also because I know we've gotten good at it, and I feel like we make it sound like we're there. But it is a weird mindset going into it, because I really like the live atmosphere, the crowd noise, just being in there, because at most of our shows where we're at ringside. Yeah. And so I like, because you're in the midst of all the noise, it's I like that much better. But it's a whole different feeling. But we've gotten good at it, and I like to think we got good at it. Toot our own horns here, but but it is two totally different vibes for sure.
Yeah, no, you guys are very, very good at it. I mean, Angelina Love really put y'all over. I don't know if you saw her comments on our show, but she really did. You guys have to remind me, because I can't remember for sure, but were both of y'all doing Battle Slam? I know they had revolving commentary for that. I know for sure I saw Gerard there.
Yeah,
I was helping run the audio. But go ahead, GB.
Okay.
Yeah. So Brandon helped to run the audio for a couple of shows, but I did call all of the Battle Slam shows. Yeah.
Okay, so I was confused. I couldn't remember if I saw both of you guys at those shows. Or that makes perfect sense. Yeah. I'll start with Gerard, but I want both of your thoughts on just Battle Slam in general. That was a really cool company. I don't know if they're planning on doing more shows. I know they did they do some events in Atlanta and stuff like that, but they haven't done a dedicated show in a while. But it's cool, the mix of hip hop and wrestling. And I mean, I grew up on the Def Jam, wrestling games and stuff. So that's very much the closest I feel like you're going to get to the real life version of that, which is really cool. What were your experiences being a part of those shows?
The Battle Slam concept was so different, and it was really so special to what was happening specifically in the Atlanta area, and a great merging of the music community and the wrestling community. There's always been a connection between music and wrestling going back to the 80s and the whole rock and wrestling situation. And, you bring that current, there's always been a connection between hip hop and pro wrestling. And so to have a product that reflects that was really exciting. And so the Battle Slam movement, I thought, was really neat in terms of, being able to combine that element of great music. The matches that were there were really incredible. It was my first introduction to Queen Aminata, and how she has gone on to dominate, certainly in the women's wrestling scene. We got to see everybody. It's funny, the clip is still floating around of Scrappy and Baron Black, still, and so, but those were moments, and there were some great moments and great opportunities. I had the opportunity to work with Shook D and to work with Caprice Coleman, two guys who've been extremely influential in my career. And I feel like that presentation really gave a lot of other spaces around the country permission to start combining hip hop and pro wrestling in whatever forms they're doing that. And so, there are a lot of other great promotions right now outside of Atlanta that are getting to do that. And I think about Ashe Wrestling out in Charlotte, Darius Lockhart, who's done a great job of presenting not just hip hop, but R&B and fusing music and great wrestling. I think that combination is something that really works. And I think Battle Slam for many ended up being the prototype.
And your thoughts, Brandon?
I loved it, man. And what was cool about it for me was that it was like a night off, right? So I had to go and just kind of hit the switches and turn the knobs. And I was sitting right next to, just off camera, right next to GB and Caprice, or GB and Suge D. Like, it was just cool to kind of sit there and watch an amazing show and get to hear my guy here just shine alongside somebody like a Caprice Coleman, who obviously doing big things in ROH. So it was kind of fun just to go and actually not have to focus on knowing all my notes and knowing all the, all the stuff about the matches, and just kind of go and get to do the technical stuff and then sit back and watch the show and I had a headset on too. So I was hearing them. Yeah. So, cause you're a fan of the show, right? You're not hearing the commentary typically, but for me, I'm wearing a headset. So I'm hearing them the whole time as I'm watching the show. It's like my own little private commentary. It was pretty cool. I loved it.
I'll add to that and say that show also gave me an opportunity to call, talent that was contracted to TNA, talent that was contracted to AEW, gave me an opportunity to be on pay-per-view on Fight, so like those kinds of opportunities really, again, open things up for people to start learning about what I'm doing nationally. And so I definitely appreciate that opportunity and what that promotion was able to do.
I remember Jay Malakai, now known as Javon.
Yes.
Evans. He was on those shows. He seemed like the best kept secret in wrestling. Even then, it was like,
totally.
Wait a second, this guy's insane. Like, he's how young and only been doing this for how long? And it's like, how's no one talking about this? And then now he's, everyone knows him.
Exactly. That was one of the cool things, is that kind of talent. I was looking through my notes the other day and I saw that I called a match between Khan and Jay Malakai. Like, what? What are we doing? Tasha Steelz and Queen Aminata. Like, there were so many really cool matches that we were able to see and experience because of that promotion. That was a really awesome time.
Gerard, I wanted to ask about your work with Ashe and Darius Lockhart, because I've never met him, but I've listened to a lot of his interviews, and he sounds so smart and so like intelligent. Like, I'm always very impressed when I listen to his interviews. So I just wanted to know like your experiences working with him.
Darius Lockhart is one of one. The way he sees the business, the way he presents the business is something that's very, very special. The concept of Ashe Wrestling, which is getting ready to celebrate a year in December, has really done something very, very special in the way it's presented wrestling, the way it's presented music, the vibe of the locker room, the vibe of the shows. It is literally like a giant family reunion every time we get together. And the matches, on that very first show, you had Trisha Dora and Aja Kong as the main event. Like, that's insane, right? It's insane. We had Shelton Benjamin and Jonathan Gresham. Like, some of these matches that we've had have just been incredible. The way that, again, Darius sees the world and presents it, it's always with great quality. I remember that first show being there, and I saw monitors, I saw gorilla position. This was run like a full-on TV show. And when you see that, you're like, oh, we've got some serious things happening here. And so shout out to Ashe, shout out to Darius Lockhart, and just the opportunities that I've had there, from being able to do in-ring interviews and, being able to talk with guys like Ron Simmons and Teddy Long and such great legends, to doing commentary there as well. It's a very special place. And what Darius is creating is something very, very special. We're going to be talking about it for a long time to come.
What are some of y'all's like future goals as a commentary duo? Like, some companies that you like maybe see yourself maybe being a part of in the near future, maybe long term, like the big goals. What do you guys kind of see in your future?
Go ahead, GB.
I was going to defer to you.
By the way, we told them before we started recording. I was like, some of these questions I was going to throw out there, and you could jump on it. So this is one of those moments.
Well, here's the thing. In GB, we'll have different answers probably, and maybe some of it will overlap, some of it won't. I don't know, but I know that both of us, and I'll even throw Diana Michelle in there. She's the other third of V3, our ring announcer from Southern Honor, and we all have aspirations. I think just like the indie wrestlers have, everybody's got an aspiration to get signed to a contract, to get signed to the next level, and whether that's, TNA, MLW, AEW, WWE, I think if any of them came calling, I know I would jump at the opportunity, right? And the connections we've made by getting our foot in the door with the Nightmare Factory and getting to know the guys there, and then people that know the crew at Southern Honor, and there's all these little connections, through DDPY and all this different stuff. And we both now have people in our phones that I could have never imagined we'd have their phone numbers, or that they would text us or call us. And over the last couple of years, I'm not going to get into name dropping or anything like that, but it's just crazy to me. Like in a span of 1 or 2 weeks, one time, GB, we're getting blown up one time. We're like, oh, why are all these? This is crazy to me, right? And so it's just a matter of time. I'll put it that way. It's just a matter of time. I don't know when it's going to be, but I know that we've all been putting in the work, and I feel like our faces, our voices, our feet are in the right doors. I just feel like it's just a matter of time, and I don't know exactly when, exactly where, but I'm ready to jump whenever they tell me to jump. So you asked for specific goals. I can't say something specifically other than I'm just ready for the next level. Whatever it may be. And GB, I'll let you go from there, man.
So I think it's safe to say this, much like what Brandon said, a lot of wrestlers may talk about what their specific wrestling goals are. You don't generally see a lot of commentary people, ring announcers, really getting those kinds of opportunities, or even talking about those kinds of goals, or having that kind of vision. I think I can safely say that amongst Brandon, Diana, and myself, I'm the one that's pushing the three of us. Like, okay, guys, all right, who wants to go where? What do you want to do? How do we want to get there? Like, and sometimes I think I'm annoying them because I do it so much. But for me, I just feel like what we all bring to the table is something that deserves to be seen nationally and internationally. I genuinely believe that. And so, we're doing the work. One of the things that's so interesting to me is, for a while, people knew us as a duo, and then we each kind of started getting our feet wet in other promotions. And initially, part of me was like, well, can I do this without Brandon? Because Brandon's going to Action and he's going here, and I was like, what in the world? And so then I got nervous when Battle Slam happened, and he's like, do your thing, so we're all pushing each other, because we understand that if the call comes collectively, fantastic. If it comes individually, that's just as good. And so, in terms of where I want to be, absolutely a national promotion. I'd love to say a name. I don't want to limit anything, so I'll be careful in saying that. But I will say I'm grateful that we've got connections in a number of the major promotions, and I feel comfortable in saying that I think they're becoming aware of who we are. And I think as long as we continue to do the work and stay in the right places and have the right eyes on us, it does become a matter of time. As the wrestling business is booming and all of these companies are growing and they're adding new shows and they're getting greater media rights deals, well, the same people that they currently have can't call all their shows, right? Somebody's got to show up to do it, and they're going to need some new voices, some new talents. And I think we bring something to the table that's not currently there.
So maybe you guys can offer insight onto this, because I'm really not sure how it works as far as the kind of media aspect of things. Obviously, if you're a wrestler, you do a dark match, you do a tryout, something like that. If you are an interviewer, a commentator, a ring announcer, like, is there anything like that? Can you show up to an ROH taping and be like, hey guys, let's go call this? Like, I don't know how that works. If there is any type of like tryout like that, or is it basically, here's kind of our tape, like hopefully people sort of notice that? Like, Brandon, I'll start with you.
Well, I got to be careful here.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
Right. And GB, I was looking at you because I was like, I'm not really sure how far I can go and what we can say.
I'll help you with this. I think one of the things that becomes really important is you have to find ways to be visible. So as a wrestler, sometimes, well, first of all, even as a wrestler, and I think Fodder is a great example of this, of how you have to be vigilant and responsible for your own content. So where it is, he could depend on whatever show he's on to just produce his show. He goes, he takes his matches and presents them in a way so that if there are other promoters who are looking, they can specifically see how he's presented. So for, I believe, a commentator, a ring announcer, someone who does not have an in-ring kind of position, I believe it's your job then to figure out how to become creative in social spaces to get people's attention. And so that could mean going back to shows that you've done, grabbing clips of your commentary. I believe in putting sizzle reels together, because one of the things that the major companies are going to do, they aren't necessarily going to go to IWTV and find your match and watch 3 hours of your show. They don't have that kind of time. So you do the work, pull out some of your best clips, put them together in a nice, neat format, and then get their attention. You have to be very present. I believe social media is one of the greatest things we could have right now to allow people to become aware of what we're doing. Become aware of who the major players are in these other companies that you want to contact. Tag them. Reach out and create relationships with them. A lot of what happens in the wrestling business happens because of relationship and hard work. So they have to be aware that you're there. And I think what happens with a lot of best kept secrets only happen because people are unaware of who we are. So we have to be willing to go out, do that work, get their attention. And then once we get their attention, shine. So I think use social media to your advantage, put the content together, be creative. You know, that's where I think putting reels and things like that together are very valuable. You know, I've been working with some people in the ring announcing space, and, you know, it's hard to just do one ring announcement over and over and over again. So find creative ways to show what makes you different than somebody else. And the same in the commentary space. As diverse as we can be, I think that makes us a real asset to wherever it is that we want to go.
This is my last question. Either of y'all can answer first. I'm just curious, as a fan, who is your favorite commentator? Like, if you had to pick one commentator that you think, gun to your head, who's your favorite commentator of all time?
I'm gonna say Tony Schiavone. Okay. I'm a little bit biased, I feel like, in that, because we've gotten to know him quite a bit over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But even before we ever met him or got to know him, I was always a big WCW guy growing up down here in Georgia. And so, yeah, he was the main, the lead commentator on what I watched mostly in the late 90s, into the 2000s. And so I'm going to go with Schiavone. Final answer.
I have three. Leave it to me. Certainly Tony Schiavone is in that list, as is Jim Ross. I feel like both of them had a way of, when you heard their voice, everything felt bigger. Everything felt more important. It could have been the average match, but when they were on the call, you were going to feel really important. The other one who has heavily influenced me is Mauro Ranallo. The way he can be so meticulous about movesets and yet connect current events and pop culture to what's happening in pro wrestling is incredible. I've literally, like, a project will come out yesterday and he'll be on it. A social media trend will happen and he's on it. And I'm like, you're a genius. How do you weave that in? So for me, it's those three. Just the knowledge of what they do, the way they present, their connection to pop culture is very huge to me.
Well, I mean, I had others, but I just said one.
I'm sorry. Those were my three. Like, I have to shout them out.
Well, I got to throw in Bobby the Brain Heenan. He's one of my favorites also back in the day.
He was amazing.
But anyways, we'll be here all night listing commentators.
It's commentary. I feel like you got to list at least two. Like, there's only
that's my fault. That's my fault for saying one. That's my fault for saying one. Joey Styles, of course. Listen, my favorite commentary team individually, they aren't my favorite, but my favorite team of all time is Don West and Mike Tenay. I love that team.
Great.
I thought there was a great combination of the professor that he was the guy who knew everything about what was going on. He knew all the wrestling terms. He knew the ins and outs of everything. And Don West was just marking out. You knew that he was having a great time. And he was like the voice of like the casual fan who was just having a great time. And I thought, and I think that's why someone like Pat McAfee works so well, because you have someone like Michael Cole who can be the guy who knows everything. Matt McAfee represents the fans, and so that's just me personally. But sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just gonna say, if it's a commentary, it feels like it's always got to be at least two. One, Joey Styles, he did it solo, but most commentary teams seem to be two-person. I think a two-person booth typically works best. Sometimes a three-man booth can get into it. We're going to talk about the ins and outs of that at another date, but we're gonna close up here with something that we ask all of our guests. What is the coolest thing in your room?
Ooh.
And please show us if you can.
Yeah, if you can grab it, or you can grab it or get it, please do.
I'll tell you.
I was gonna guess that looked pretty cool. I had my eye on that throughout the interview.
I want you to get a good look at it here. Hang on.
The coolest.
By the way, are you guys familiar with Exotic Youth?
Yes, I've seen them at CDW, as a matter of fact.
So that's Bryce Cannon, and that's me slapping the taste out of his mouth.
That is great.
And the backstory on that is, GB, was that 2 years ago? 3 years ago? When was that?
Oh gosh. No, I think it's about at least two.
It was the first one, right? Yeah, it was the first live show. So they have, and Stephen, you're in Georgia, so you may be familiar with this. Jeremy, where are you located?
I'm in Ohio.
Ohio. Okay. So in Georgia, they have the Georgia Wrestling History Awards that go out every year. They come out in January for the previous year. And up until like 2 years ago, they were just awards that were done over the website, over the Facebook page. And then a couple of years ago, somebody came up with the idea, hey, let's actually have a live in-person award show, much like, the Grammys or the Emmys or whatever. And so the very first one that they held, they invited myself and Gerard and Diana Michelle to co-host, be the main host of the show, which was pretty cool. And it was at our home base at the home of Southern Honor Wrestling up there in Canton, Georgia, at the Action Building. And this is the first time we've ever done one of these live shows, right? And it's always just been done online, and they'll do like, I think it was a podcast where they would present the awards, right? Yeah. And this was the first one we did in person, and it was, the previous year was the Will Smith, Chris Rock slap, right? Yeah. And I thought, okay, this is the first time we've done a live show like this since that happened. We've got to reference it somehow, right? And so we've always had, between us, well, specifically myself and Diana Michelle, have had a beef with Exotic Youth going back a few years. And so they got up on stage. Coincidentally, Exotic Youth was presenting the award for Best Commentary Team, which we would go on to win. But while they were up there, Bryce starts mouthing off about Diana Michelle. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it didn't take much. And then I had to go up there and slap the taste out of his mouth and tell him to keep Diana's name out of his mouth. And there were plenty of videos of that and whatnot. And then, of course, then they have to announce us up there as the winners. And so then I had to apologize for my outburst and all that as we accepted the awards. But then at the following Southern Honor show, a few weeks later, one of our fans had made this sign and presented it to me after the show. And I thought that was one of the coolest things ever. So now it's immortalized here in this poster.
It's really good too. Like the drawing is really good.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then of course some people were like, "Oh yeah, I never noticed how much you look like Hank Hill." And so now I get the Hank Hill. Thanks, guys. Damn it, Bobby.
That is great. I've been thinking. I think it's right behind me. The spinner belt right over there. Yeah. That's pretty cool because I actually bought that at a WrestleMania. I bought that at WrestleMania 23 in Detroit. And so that was kind of fun to do. So that one there, and actually over there, I might go grab it. I actually have the seat that I sat in at WrestleMania 23. Let me grab that.
Yeah, if you don't mind, grab it. We love seeing this stuff.
So while he's not there, I just want to mention. Oh well, he's back too quick. I'll tell you in a second.
Didn't take me long. Here it is. Here's the seat. Cool. There's the whole seat.
Very nice.
For WrestleMania.
Battle of the Billionaires. There you go.
Fitting, right?
Yeah.
Go figure.
GB, I was just about to mention to them, and you came back way too quick, and it didn't give me time to say.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. So was when was it 25 you were at where you were like second row?
Yes.
Okay. So this is obviously I didn't know GB at this time, but then finding out years later. So if you go back and watch WrestleMania 25 and then just play a little game of where's GB, like you'll see him constantly throughout the show because he's like second row and he's got a camera and he's popping up constantly taking pictures. I'm like, he's like right there on the screen like throughout the whole show. It's great. Anyways,
fun time.
I'm gonna look for him next time I watch Undertaker Michaels. We're gonna look for you, GB.
That's the main one you see him at every false he jumps up. It's great. Yeah.
Oh, real quickly, kind of a last one. You've mentioned Diana Michelle and you've mentioned the name V3. Is that voice 3? Is that what it stands for?
So it's kind of funny how it happened. December 2019, when it was my first day, it was also Diana's first day. And she was coming in as ring announcer. Felt like I was coming in off the street, literally, as commentator. But what ended up happening was we didn't really know each other. And 2 days later, Gary Lamb puts out this post that has the three of us and calls us the voices of Southern Honor. And we're like, holy cow. And so
it's official now.
It's official, right? So we just started hanging and we just started calling ourselves V3. And it's funny, it's been said you can make in this business friends or you can make money, but you can't do both. And I think we've kind of disproved that theory in terms of being able to genuinely support each other, genuinely love each other, really support all of the things that we're doing. And it's really kind of amazing to watch how the three of us have just done varying things in the business and still are able to come together. But yeah, we call ourselves V3 and it's the voices of Southern Honor. And I guess somehow Gary Lamb gets credit for that.
Whoa, I wasn't going to that Come on.
Gary's going to love that. He's going to love that.
But no, it's kind of caught on. And it's funny because like we don't think about stuff catching on like that until we're at shows and then the fans are referencing us as that. And we're like, oh, I guess they listen to the podcast, like it's
right.
Just, you don't think about it until you're out in public and realize like who's actually watching and who's actually listening. And wow, there's actually a lot of people kind of keeping up with us. And so it's kind of cool. Yeah.
I had a feeling it had to do something with voices, one, because of the line of work. And then I'm thinking the names. I see yours on the screen, and Diana's like, there's no V in any of these names. So it has to be, it can't be related to their names. It's got to be something else. Because we really appreciate you joining us here tonight. Brandon, I'll start with you. Let everybody know where they can find you at.
B double on air across all the socials. That's where you can find me personally. Of course, at SHW Pod, where you can find a V3. And of course, Southern Honor Wrestling, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. We're still on the relaunch tour for that. It's been a blast with QT and all those guys. A lot of the folks from Nightmare Factory involved with that as well. GB and I got to call the relaunch show. I always ask you, GB, was it January or February? February of this year. We had the huge relaunch show. You can find that on YouTube. And then since then, we've been doing a relaunch tour, just hitting different spots around Georgia. And that's kind of fun for me because I'm getting to branch out a little bit and show off my little Diana Michelle, what I've learned from her, because I get to ring announce some matches as well, which I don't normally get to do. And I'm also kind of emceeing and hosting those shows. And then Diana will be there to kind of, because we're not taping those shows, right? So we're not there doing commentary for those. And so that's been a fun little experience. But yeah, so SHW, TCW, the Nightmare Factory student showcases every few months. And then Coastal Empire Wrestling, I'm down there in Savannah once a month with those guys. Don't tell anybody I said this, but I'm actually on commentary with Bryce Cannon while he's out injured. And of course, another gentleman named the Maestro. And it's kind of weird because that's a whole different universe. And down there, Exotic Youth is over like Rover, whereas up here at SHW, they're like mortal enemy number one. And so it's a very strange dynamic to be down there and be like, wait, what is it? It's like a bizarro world, right? So it's but it's been a lot of fun doing a commentary and being kind of bouncing all over the place. And I know GB's been all over the place as well, so I'm going to let him take over.
You guys can find me at Bonnerfied across all of the social spaces. Of course, you can check out my work with Southern Honor Wrestling. I'm working with IWE, and both of those are on IWTV, so you can check that out there. Of course, I work with the Nightmare Factory, the WWE ID Nightmare Factory. Just got to throw that in there. Of course, that's on their YouTube page. Also, our work with Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling is there as well. Shout out, of course, to my friends at Ashe Wrestling in Charlotte, North Carolina. You can check out my work with them at AsheWrestling.com. Then I have to shout out my friends at All Caribbean Wrestling, who have given me some incredible opportunities to do international shows over the last year. And some really fun things are happening with All Caribbean as well. And you can check that out at allcaribbeanwrestling.com, as well as on their YouTube page as well. So I'm just super excited to see the things that pro wrestling has given us the opportunity to do. And of course, every first Friday, I'm with this guy, Brandon, and we're doing our thing at Southern Honor. And what a joy, what a privilege, and what a pleasure.
Guys, we really appreciate you joining us here tonight. Thank you for being here. Wish you would have buried Jensen a little bit more, but that's okay.
He's too nice. He's just too nice. I can't
do that.
Fair. I get it. I get it.
I will forever be linked to these guys. Like my commentary experience will forever be linked to these two. So there's been a long time coming. I've been talking about getting you guys on here for a long time. It's just hard to coordinate sometimes with 4 people all at one time, but sure, I hope to see you guys, in person again sometime soon too. Here around Atlanta.
Great.
So
that would be great.
Jensen always says nice things about you guys. Anytime, basically anytime Jameson comes up in conversation when we talk about stuff, Jensen is always like, "Oh yeah, Jameson, the championship dictionary shows. I called the show with Brandon and Gerard, and it was great. And they were so kind, so welcoming. So every single time Jameson comes up, you guys come up, and then he praises you guys. So yes, this has been a long time coming. He's been talking about getting you guys on for a long time.
I'm a fan.
Thank you so much.
Likewise. We're fans of you guys. And again, I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, and thank you so much for having us, man. This has been a pleasure, and been a great time catching up for sure. And you're right. It's been a long time coming. And so we're excited to finally get to be here and do this with you guys. So thank you again for having us. Appreciate that.
Okay, we appreciate it, guys. All the links are below. You can follow Brandon and Gerard. Check out all their work. And guys, we'll be right back here on the Spotlight. We're back. Big thank you to Brandon and Gerard for joining us in the Creators Spotlight. Big thank you to everybody here hanging out with us this morning. We'll be back next week talking all the things in the world of professional wrestling. Everybody enjoy your weekend, whatever you're doing. If you're watching wrestling, there's New Japan on Friday. There's MLW on Saturday, along with the usual SmackDown and Collision. Or if you're taking a break from wrestling and doing something else with your life, enjoy it. Have fun. Take care of yourself. Bye, everybody.